What's going on, everybody? Cali Death Podcast back once again, episode 108. As always, I'm your host, Anthony, and I am joined by two resident homies right now. We'll have a third resident homie very, very shortly. He actually got off work early. So we got Casey and Joel with me tonight. What's going on, dudes?
What up?
What up?
Hi.
And we'll see Joseph the Professor very shortly. And tonight we are joined by the very talented Alex Weber. What's going on, Alex?
Hey, what's up, dudes?
Hey, nice to see you, dude. Nice to meet you. Glad to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's definitely cool to be a part of this because especially recently, you guys have had a ton of really killer guests and a bunch of my friends. Like I watched the one you guys did with Danny from Malignancy and Max's one. And yeah, so it's definitely cool to be here.
Yeah, dude. I like to think that we have our finger on the pulse of all the sick motherfuckers that are in this industry, and we'd like to talk to all of them, dude.
Well, hey, killer. I appreciate being amongst those.
Hell yeah, dude. No doubt. You've been on our radar for a while, dude. You know, but your roster, your resume is quite a resume, dude. And I've listened to Svengahli. Is that how you say it?
Yep.
That was because I was familiar with all the other bands that were on the flyer, but that was one that I hadn't listened to, and very impressive, dude.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's a newer project of my own stuff. So like I wrote all the music, I'm doing the vocals on all of that. So it kind of it's sort of more of a side project and a means of using music that I had written that didn't get used for other projects or just other music that I had laying around that I liked enough to release and didn't want to just keep it as like guitar profiles on my computer, you know?
Sick, dude. Yeah, no, it's definitely got a unique feel to it. There's familiarities of certain genres and bands at times when you're listening to it, just like pretty much everything else. But
yeah, how would you describe it? Because I had to work. I just like ran here from work and didn't get a chance.
Say how would I describe it?
Yeah, the style of it.
It's kind of like Exist music in a way. I mean, because obviously, you know, Max and I are kind of coming from similar places musically, but Svengahli might be like a little bit more death metal in certain moments. It's not like obviously all death metal, and it's not like it's that much heavier, but there are certain moments where I guess the music gets a little darker at times.
Okay.
Even though Exist music gets kind of dark too. I mean, it's in that ballpark, you know, to save a really long-winded, unnecessary description of something. It's kind of basically sort of similar to that.
Okay, so it's kind of like a thrashy, shreddy, deathy.
No, I wouldn't say thrash at the top. I would say prog.
Definitely
death. It's got some genty elements to it at times.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of busy bass playing. For sure.
Odd meter shit. Fuck yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just like, you know, different dynamics and ebbs and flows, different kind of goes to different zones. It's not all, you know, sort of one thing a lot. So yeah, it's basically kind of just like prog metal, you know.
Oh yeah.
Like some of these like descriptions of certain genres just get so long. And sometimes I just don't really care. So I'm like, yeah, it's just prog, it's metal.
It does get to a point where it's just like, hey, dude, just fucking go listen to it.
Yeah.
You know?
I know.
You know, like I don't need to
I always
give
love
you
the term
this
prog.
much of a
prog is such like a whatever. It's like it's talented, like it's like hard work music, and it could do like, you know, prog means throw, like I've talked about a million times, like throw like, you know, in Eastern Indian music and throw like a little, you know, like that could be prog too. Like everything falls under the prog umbrella.
Many people are pulling from so many different styles of music now that like it's kind of coming from all over the place, and these single word descriptions for stuff, it just kind of doesn't always make sense. Like it's kind of the same thing in jazz in a way, you know, like a lot of times people will just call something jazz because it has a saxophone in it, you know, where it's like, it's not really totally jazz. Sure, maybe there's improvised parts in it, maybe it's improvising music, but it's not really like jazz on the surface as like a lot of people might see it.
Right. It could have, you know, so many different commonalities because instruments can be commonalities, attitudes, and even like rules and styles can be commonalities, but really, is it jazz music? That's the, you know,
and some people have very like kind of strict definitions of what certain things are, you know, which obviously can, you know, get to a detriment at a certain point, you know, because who are you to say what something kind of is and isn't? But there are some, you know, more strong opinions about like, oh, that's jazz and that's not, or oh, that's prog metal and oh, that's not. You know, like with Exist, not like this is a benchmark that we were trying to achieve, but like we're not on Metal Archives and have been denied multiple times by people trying to upload us. And basically it's come down to like Exist like being too gent or something. And it's like, really? Like, I don't know if I'd look at it like that or call it that, or just we're like too weird or something.
Crazy.
But
that's weird.
Yeah, so sometimes it's like, you know, certain people's opinions about what something is, it's just like it kind of doesn't matter at the end of the day.
That's strange because it's like gent is a subgenre that was born from metal.
Yeah.
How could it not be included in metal? You know?
Exactly. Or like they've said that we're not metal enough. Where it's like, well, if you listen to our music, like shit gets heavy. We've got blast beats, we've got growling, it gets dark. Like, well, what?
So you're not on Metal Archives, huh?
That's Metal Archives.
It's not like I care that much. It's not like I'm crying every night in bed. Like,
well, I know, but it seems like they have so many bands on there. It's like such a, you know, seems kind of diverse. I thought. I mean,
Svengahli is on there. One of my other side projects, Wait, which basically is like Exist. It was another project of one of our friends, Charlie Iran. That the album got released on the Artisan Era about like a year ago or something. That's on there, and that's like way more genty than Exists. So it's kind of silly and stupid, and again, not something I really care that much about. But
who's the main dude there? Like I've never known anyone that works on that site. I just know that it like I'll click my name. Like, how the fuck do they know that? You know, like there's certain
it's weird.
Things. Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, I think it's like Wikipedia in a way where it's like public entries, like other people will add it, and then I guess
okay
the admins check on it. I'm assuming it's like that, unless there's just some like, you know, neckbeard guy just
like all day
long, like literally searching every corner of the metal world.
It's like Joel Horner, bass player of Odious Mortem, Severed Savior, All Realm, and avid Kansas City Chiefs fan. Like, how the fuck does he know that, dude? He's got to be snooping my profiles, dude.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Or like even like your birthdays, like sometimes like my birthday is on Metal Archives, which is like you would have had to go to like the deep about information on my Facebook page to figure that out, because I don't like. It's not like it's not public knowledge, but it's not something I like talk about all the time. So
it's kind of cool to know that there's the nerdy aspect of metal to where there's enough dudes that would want to keep it alive like that. Like,
sure. Oh, yeah.
I think if we move out into something else, which by the way, battleforgecoffee.com, if you if you really want some coffee. Yes, sir. You go.
He missed his.
He missed our window to say some shit.
I was about to say, I see the banner scrolling across it right now. There's the product plug. So
dude, that's the homies, dude.
Or what?
No, it's not ours. It's actually our brothers in Deeds of Flesh. They started the company.
Oh, sick.
Yeah. And they've been doing it for a while, and we've always been plugging it up top. Always Cali Death Podcast, bigcartel.com, which actually, are we doing that pre-order? Is it up and ready to go? Or I thought we said we were going to do it.
Ready to go.
We said it was going to be up and ready to go for this episode.
I'll talk to Professor about it after.
Sure,
I guess we should have had a meeting earlier this week or something about it, but whatever. It's all good. Very soon there will be pre-orders for a full color new design. If you guys see the episode 100, the thumbnail for that episode is going to be a t-shirt design, and then we're going to bring back the OG logos, swapping it from the left chest to the right chest for you guitar players, and the strap
for all you right-handed guitar players.
yeah
we should have both options,
or you should have them on both
just both
sides.
All over the shirt.
Double up, dude.
That's hilarious, dude. That would be so funny if you did
what
that, dude.
company is that shirt for? I can't, a logo.
Double up.
I actually, now more thinking about it, I like this double-chested logo idea, dude. I do. It's not a bad idea, dude.
Tons of them.
It's different. Gets people to look twice.
That's right.
right. And actually, for you, bro, Alex, you plug away some stuff real quick before we get back into it.
What do I plug? Well, I mean,
Merch spots.
Exist is finishing up a new album. So I mean, we're kind of sort of done the recording process in a way. We're finishing up a lot of the final elements of it, but that release probably won't happen until later. Yeah, we are existing. Whether or not it's always online or in public, in people's view, we definitely are still existing. But that album probably won't get released until later next year because, the lead time that record labels need now is kind of sucks because like our label needs like 9 months before release. So, and I know that's not, uncommon. Like a lot of other labels are doing
because
that
of vinyl or something.
I'm assuming it's probably still vinyl delays.
I think it is too.
And which obviously that you want that for the release, so it totally makes sense. But it kind of sucks to have something finished and then have to sit on it for a while. But we have a Bandcamp page that you can go to. On my own Instagram page, I have one of those link trees that you can find links for basically everything for all the different Bandcamp pages that we have that we're selling merch through. But I think it's mostly just that, like we don't have a big cartel page or, a night shift merch page or anything like that. So I think it's mostly all just coming individually from us or from our own Bandcamps.
I have a question for you. Are you teaching lessons?
I do, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. How do you do that? Because I know that's like, we always skip over that. And that's how a lot of these musicians
Definitely
make actual money.
It can be pretty.
I mean, I see money.
I had a lesson like an hour before this podcast.
Okay.
So
how did they get a hold of you for that?
Mostly just through my own personal pages, just through messaging. I have a website, alexwebermusic.com, that you can also contact me through, but it's probably just as direct to just go to my Instagram or Facebook page because I'm doing stuff on it all the time.
Fuck! I tagged the wrong person in.
Did you tag Alex Webster?
No, I did Adam Weber.
Oh, dude, I've gotten so many people like tagging me with like pictures that they took with Alex Webster on a tour or meeting him at a show, and it's like
seriously.
And but the one thing I'll give him on that is for a while I did realize that our IG handles were basically the same. His was Alex Webster base, mine was Alex Weber base. Right. So if you're like going through really quickly,
you're just missing the
Yeah, exactly. So if you don't like look at the middle of the word, like I can't remember what the term for that is, but it's like a mental thing where we can read text that like some of the inner letters are twisted around. But
as long as the first and last letter are correct, our brain kind of
just puts it together. Yeah,
I think one time what that's called, but so sure. I can see how some people do that, especially if it's quick. So I ended up like changing my IG handle, which is like Alex_Weber_base, just to space it out a little bit more. Obviously there's still going to be people that still think I'm Alex Webster because that's never going to stop ever.
So funny, dude.
But dude,
that gives you an opportunity to be like, but I am a bass player.
Yeah.
And we've played with some of the same people too, so it gets even more confusing. Like with playing with Jeff Loomis or things like that. It like, sure, I get the confusion, but dude, I've had people come up to my face thinking I was Alex Webster. Like, so that just shows you don't know what he looks like either. And all like, what are you saying? I'm like 50 because I don't know how old Alex is, but I'm sure he's like 50.
They got to be someone new to metal or getting into the cannibal or something.
It has to be. Like I remember there was one Malignancy show. Some dude comes up to me who he didn't seem like he was like super drunk or like out in space. But he's like, dude, I loved you in Blotted Science back in the day, man. Your playing was so good. And I'm like, dude, what? Like I'm a white guy with long hair and facial hair, but we like don't look anything alike. And he's like 20 years older than me.
Right.
That'd be so funny if Jarzenbeck was like, if Alex Webster couldn't do it, he like hits you up.
Oh man, about the confusion that would create.
Alex could definitely pull it off, though.
That would be super fun music to play.
Hell
you should be Alex Webster for Halloween, dude.
I could be one of his Spectre bases. I don't know how I would dress really any differently. Maybe like gray my hair a little bit.
You have to curl it, right? Is it a little
curl
it?
Yeah. The full beard. I think it's got the full beard.
I can't do the full beard. Like this is all I get. It gets all patchy on the sides and just.
Me too. I have a terrible beard.
But I could just like do like a cardboard cutout of his face and just wear it.
There you go.
Play one of his like specters with blood on it, you know, or just like put paint on one of my bases. Hey, if there's a will, there's a way. I can make it happen. I don't know if I want to play into that though, because it does get really annoying. Where it's like, come on, man, just read. Like I'm not him. Like I get it.
Right.
Just read. Yeah.
Don't make it worse. Yeah.
Well, and now people are also thinking I'm Jeroen through like doing the Obscura stuff, because even though live Stefan had announced my name, you know, okay, so sure, you know, maybe he, like over on the Europe tour that we just did, maybe there's people in the audience that don't really speak English, but Alex Webster doesn't sound anything like Jeroen Paul Thesseling at all. You know, so even like people reviewing some of those concerts still thought I was Jeroen. So it's just like, first people thought I was Alex Webster. Now people thought I was Jeroen, and, you know, I don't know who the next person's going to be, but I don't know. I don't really care about it that much, but it's more just like, man, do people not read at all?
Yeah.
You know, like, you look at something for literally 2 seconds, like, oh yeah, it's that guy.
You know? It got me though, by the way. I remember, I forget exactly how like we came in contact online, but it was either you added me or I added you from like something that was like, oh, check this person out. And I was like, oh, Alex Webster? Fuck yeah. And I was like, oh shit.
One of the ones.
This was years ago though, so I'm like, I guess, you know, I'm one of the old school.
I never had the Alex Webster thing. I always had the Adam Weber thing, because I've known Adam and been friends with Adam for a long time.
That's what I tagged.
In the back of my mind. Yeah, I know. When you said that, I giggled, because in the back of my mind today, I was like, I can't say Adam Weber. I can't say Adam Weber. I always fuck up people's names.
Yeah, who does he play with? Do you play with Embryonic or something back in the day, or?
Yeah, he's
okay.
He still does.
Okay,
maybe
yeah,
not. I don't know.
I know they have a new guitar player. I know, so I don't think he's in the band anymore. But I don't know.
But he was founding member.
Jarvis, I didn't know an Adam Weber.
Oh man.
Yeah, dude. Let's start.
Joel, you thought Alex Webster added you though when that happened?
Oh yeah, I was like, what? Like, when we talked about this before, like back in the MySpace days, we had Alex Webster put. I'm like making sure I say it right now. Yeah. Alex Webster put Odious on the top whatever MySpace thing. And we were just like,
I remember that.
We're millionaires now. Like we made like $1 million that day.
Yeah, that is definitely some like street cred points when fucking Alex Webster put us on the top 5. For you youngins who never
top
was
8.
on it. Was it top 8? Sorry.
Yeah.
So you'd have a top 8 on your page. You can actually make your top 8. Can you do that on Facebook, or is it just random?
So.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No. I think sometimes maybe the people that pop up in the pictures are maybe the ones that interact with you the most, like whether you comment on them a lot or they comment on you or they stalk your profile, whatever it is. I think it sometimes pops up like that, but I don't think you can customize it.
Yeah, that was like your badge of honor, dude. Like these are my top 8, dude. These are the ones I want everybody else to see that I'm friends with. And Alex put Odious on there, and we're like, what, dude?
Wouldn't that be weird when you like put someone in your top 8, like a friend or something, and they didn't return the favor? You're like, fuck you, dude. In a week,
you, man. Like,
in a week, you're gone, dude.
You're like, dude, but you're 9, dude. It's fine, dude.
Not quite.
You're in my top 9.
Yeah, if there was more, man, you'd be the 9th one. It'd be right after that. Come on, dude.
Yeah.
The thought that counts.
Exactly.
It is crazy that it's been like maybe almost 15 years since MySpace has been like an active thing.
I tried to go on it recently. I couldn't even figure it out.
But it's weird that like the servers still exist. Like the website you can still go to. Like if some of my old band pages from high school are still up. Yeah. But like you can't like see any of the pictures because probably that part of the server is gone. Or, like the music might not play, but like it's still there. So it's this weird like ghost mall kind of thing, you know, like these dying malls from the 90s that like have like one guy cleaning the floor in some weird dollar store at the end with, you know, like some crypt keeper guy.
Yeah, dude, it's like the mall in Tim and Eric's $1 billion movie, dude. They go to Will Ferrell puts a commercial out, come save my mall, we'll give you $1 billion or some shit like that.
Yeah.
And then Tim and Eric are taking a leak at the stall and they're like, oh dude, let's just go run this mall, and you get there and there's squatters. There's like a wolf living in the mall.
Yeah, exactly.
That everybody has to like protect themselves from overnight and shit. Yeah, dude. But there's still a couple of stores that are open.
Dude, it's weird. I'm assuming it's probably the same for you guys out there, but like there are a lot of those type of malls in Maryland because there's a lot of suburban areas around here. And man, some of them are weird. Like there was this one that used to be in Frederick that I remember the last time, like Max and I went there, like kind of at one point before it was about to close. And it really was that, like the floor had like a ripple in it just because like people hadn't been taking care of it. So it like the tiles were coming up. Like there was maybe 2 stores in the whole thing. It was really strange how it was even still open in any capacity.
It's crazy how like time takes over places like that, you know, like if it's not being maintained, it's just, it looks like, it's fucking solid floors. It's got a fountain. It's got all this thing. And then like, you don't take care of it for 10 years and like shit's like bubbling up and just exploding. Like,
yeah, dude. That's like that show, Life After Humans.
Oh yeah.
If we just left it alone, how long would it take for Earth to reclaim everything?
Yeah.
And
it's a trip.
I don't know what the time frame for like the Golden Gate Bridge to crumble, but it's not that long, dude.
No,
it really is not that long.
It's taking over and like the main supports of it it'll just fall pretty fast.
Yeah, after not having the maintenance that it gets every single year, dude, it's done.
Yeah.
Jesus.
All right, dude. So fucking living life, dude. Isn't it awesome?
It's great.
Speaking of life, let's talk about yours, dude. Let's go back in time a little bit.
Day one.
Let's get that early memory of your connection with music, dude. Like, tell us about it.
So both of my parents were professional musicians. So I've been around it my entire life. Like my dad was a percussionist and a drummer that mostly did classical music and musical theater. Like he went to this conservatory in Ohio called Oberlin, which is kind of one of the, especially at the time, like in the 60s, because my dad's, I think he's like 70.
Just to cut you off too quick, but if you just start off with like my dad, he played bass in Cannibal Corpse. And,
yeah, that would be no, thank you.
Too soon.
Anyways, too soon.
Yeah, I named my son the exact same name as me. Just make it more. No, I don't have any connections like that. But yeah, so he went to that conservatory, which at the time was like one of the big classical conservatories in the country, and so he did that. And then my mom was a singer and an actress, and they met doing these musical theater tours all across the country. So they've done a lot of touring themselves. And
mainly just theater acting for your mom?
Basically, yeah, it's all theater stuff. So like my mom was a singer and an actress on stage, and my dad was playing in the pit. And so they've played every state other than Montana, because like with a lot of those tours, they're going everywhere. They'll like go to colleges in really weird places or go to towns and cities that metal tours don't really ever go to. Like I'm never really ever expecting to play a gig like in Alabama. I know it happens sometimes, but like that or like Arkansas, most of the time you're just skipping over a state like that. Whereas they've played literally everywhere in the state. So yeah, they did that for a while, and then I came along and fucked it up, and they got like real people jobs. But I have been surrounded by music my whole life. So my earliest memories were pretty much of just like my dad practicing, like because he played a lot of vibraphone, and that was one of the instruments that he kept at the house. Like his main,
what's a vibraphone?
It's like a xylophone, but it has these spinning discs inside of each of the, I think they're called bells or tubes that it almost sounds like a Hammond organ in a way. It like creates this like wow 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 kind of sound.
I've always heard the name vibraphone, but I never knew what it was.
Yeah, so it looks like a lot of the percussion instruments look kind of the same. Like xylophone and vibraphone are very similar, but vibraphone has these little spinning discs inside of the tubes that create this kind of different sound. And so a lot of guys, especially in jazz, use vibraphone more just because it has that kind of more sort of, for lack of a better description, more interesting kind of sound. There you go.
It's got more texture.
Yeah, exactly. It just had, that's an expensive one too.
And it makes sense when you're talking about how it works too, because it's
Joel just bought it.
vibration, vibraphone, it's causing vibrations inside.
Yeah, maybe that's where the name came from. I don't know, but so either way, my earliest memories were
It
him.
creates vibes.
Of just him practicing in the basement, and I remember it kind of putting me in these moods that, like, it wasn't something I was necessarily aware of, but it was almost like watching a movie in a way where I wasn't like actively thinking about it, but like when I'd be playing with my toys or something, it would like kind of put me in this like different kind of headspace where, you know, I feel whatever I might have been feeling as like a 3-year-old kid, but like it just kind of did something to me. That I might have, that at the time I wasn't really aware of, but I still have like a memory of those things happening, those feelings, and just constantly being around that. Like I would go to some of his, like he would play in churches a lot. So I'd go to some of these like concerts where he'd be playing. He also played timpani. So like his main things were timpani and vibraphone. And so, you know, I'd be going to some of these concerts that he would be performing and just kind of like sitting, like hiding behind the stage somewhere, like kind of sitting near the big organ box in some of these churches. So it was really cool, like sitting right underneath one of those big organs when they're going off, just because you don't realize how loud those things actually are until you're sitting right next to it, because it's built to fill up an entire church. So obviously it's going to be fucking loud.
Weekend at Timpani's.
What's up? Yeah.
Sorry.
And, you know, so like always just being around that stuff my whole life, I guess maybe, you know, planted the seed for that. I don't know. My parents never forced me into music though, which I kind of appreciate. Cause like, I know a bunch of people that like their parents like made them take piano lessons at the age of 2 and like really started cracking the whip at like a really early age. Oh dude, no, seriously. I have friends that don't remember not playing piano.
Jesus.
Yeah, like there's this whole thing. I think it's pretty much only in classical music called the Suzuki method.
Oh yeah.
That you know, basically is kind of geared towards getting people into music at a really early age, just because of like what's happening in our brains at an early
development
age.
Stuff. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because we're more like sponge-like at that age, so things can develop faster if you're brought in and, you know, at an early age. But sometimes I feel like people fuck that up and try to like ask too much of a little kid. Like a 6-year-old kid's not going to want to sit there grinding with a metronome for like 3 hours. It's just not going to work. Or like having these kids do this like real regimented kind of thing all the time with music that they don't really have a real connection with in a way. You know, like in a lot of these piano lessons, you might either play etudes or having to play it's classical music or whatever it is, but it's not like music you were listening to at that age.
I would argue though, like the young ages that kids wouldn't want to do that at, the connection can't really happen because they haven't fully developed
Possible
enough to make the connection that you're talking about, you know. So it'll always sound boring because they haven't yet made that full connection with some piece of music that they deeply fall in love with yet.
They didn't hear like this album came on, I needed to do that. That's like, oh no, they just did that. And now they're like, they're doing that, you know, scholastically almost. Not like
absolutely.
Yeah.
Like art should never be forced, like, or like mandatory, you know?
Or
you
should
like
kind of
sought after, you know?
You should want to do it like for your
naturally,
own drive.
Yeah.
One thing I've always kind of tried to do with my students, especially maybe the younger ones or ones that are more beginner, is try to sneak certain like topics or skills or whatever into music that they like play certain songs that they're already
relatable.
Yeah, exactly. That's more relatable rather than just like giving them these like method book exercises that just like make you feel like you're in math class or something.
Totally.
Because again, I mean, that's how all of us got to where we are in music, is just like genuinely loving the thing that we're doing and wanting to just go after it, you know. And I'm sure, like, I don't know if you guys have ever taken private lessons at all, but like, you know, I've had teachers that were basically just like regurgitating stuff at me that weren't trying to like personalize things, or weren't also just trying to like develop my just overall love of music.
Oh, me too. Yeah, there's been literally like the first day one, it's like, oh, here's the major scale, here's these chords. I'm like, I quit like after the second class, I think, and then come to find a teacher that was like, hey, here's how to play Slayer. And I'm like, okay, we can start there. Like I can get like immediate results and be like, okay, whoa, I'm jamming with it, and then I'll be like, where does this come from? What, Slayer, music theory probably isn't too much into Slayer, but like still, like you can know like how do we create stuff or blah blah. I'll like nerd out on how it, how to make that shit rather than like how to just play like what sounds good,
Yeah, you can still analyze. I mean, sure, it's probably most of it's atonal and not really going by any type of rules at all, but you can still kind of talk about what a riff is doing and, just get to know like what the notes of the fretboard are and just various things like that while you're still teaching them or working on stuff.
Yeah, that's smart.
Like,
yeah.
I've already Casey, were you going to say something? Sorry.
I was going to say, you're saying it would be rad to analyze like Slayer solos and just be like, it's like this like atonal, like chromatic, like thing with like this, like, like.
I mean, you could do that with Defeated Sanity. I don't think you could really do that with Slayer. With Slayer, it's kind of like there's no point to it.
Yeah. It's like he's just doing this really quick on this one area.
Those guys,
Slayer specifically. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
they weren't thinking like that at all. Like. There's this is completely kind of veering off of the.
Go for it, dude. We're already fucking veered off.
Yeah, exactly. There's this jazz pianist named Bill Evans who was around, back in
of course.
Okay, so one of the famous jazz pianists. There was somebody who made this transcription. I don't remember what tune it was, but of just like his performance on this one tune, and it was so precise to the point where if you just put it into a computer, what it would regurgitate would sound exactly like how Bill played it. But it was a lot of these really like stupid rhythms, like 128th note rhythms, or these weird tuplets and things that were basically just trying to compensate for like him playing slightly in front of the beat or behind the beat, or something that like was more organic than that. Cause it's like, dude, the guy was not thinking about that. He wasn't thinking in that way. It's just, that's how it came out. So it's like, sure, I guess it's cool that you figured that out, but what's the point?
That was actually kind of a cool thing that I've talked about it before talked about it a little bit, but with talking to Matt Sotelo about writing solos. He was like, he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. Like he has no idea what the fuck he's doing, but he's just like, it sounds good. He's all, if I need some inspiration or something, I'll look into like maybe some scales and stuff and do that. But like, this sounds good in this position over this riff. Yeah. And I don't know what the fuck it is, but like he said basically for the style of music that he wants, he's like, I can use theory as a tool, but it's not where I'm writing from, Sure,
yeah. It might help you get to a certain option faster, where if you hear something in your head, you're like, oh, okay, well, that's the Lydian scale, or that's the altered scale, whatever it is. It can just get you there faster rather than like, okay, I'm going to write this song that uses the altered scale, the Lydian dominant, and the blah, blah, rather than, just kind of like plugging stuff into a computer. You're using your ears more than anything.
Definitely.
So even if you don't know theory, what it looks like on paper, a lot of people still like naturally hear it.
They hear it. Yeah.
I'm sure Matt would hear what some of these chords and scales would sound like and know like, oh, that's that chord. I don't know what the name of it is, but that's what that is.
That's actually been my biggest problem just in work and profession and stuff, doing like working with tech shit. Like I know how to do it, but like how to explain it.
Sure.
Yeah. Like my boss and stuff is so technical how he explains things that I'm like, oh, that's a great way to put it. Like I just thought you just did this thing and then you type this thing and then you're done. He's like, no, you're like, the way he explains it, so I guess scholastic again, just very like technical and to the point, where I'm like, that's perfect. I could never have done that, but I know how to do the thing, but I could never have put it in terms that really would make sense.
Well, that's one of the challenges with teaching too, just because like you might have your own way of understanding. Like Alan Holdsworth, for instance, had like these weird ways that he would think about like scales and chords and rhythms and whatever that made sense to him, but it's not like they weren't symbols or ways of functioning that like other people kind of widely use. So explaining it in that way just wouldn't really do anything for people. But yeah, you kind of have to have like a really deep understanding of something to be able to explain it to somebody really clearly, just because, like, you know, like I said, we all kind of have our own ways of just naturally understanding something that we might not be able to fully, you know, talk about.
And there's different learning styles of every human. That's I mean, talking to a lot of teachers and stuff that are struggling with certain people, and some people are excelling. But once they started learning that there's different ways that people learn stuff, and that people take information differently. Some people will take it in through a book, and some people will take it in like they need to put their hands on it. And some people, you know, and they can apply it right away. Or there's, you know, people that just kind of understand it kind of already, and they make you feel dumb in class, like, shit, you already get it. Like, I am so behind. Like, I have no idea what's going on, you know?
Yeah, I don't envy teachers that have to deal with all that stuff.
Tough. That's tough.
It's got to be brutal. Like I used to teach at a college. Oh, different angle now.
Jesus, I know.
Musical windows, whatever.
That's how it happens every fucking Thursday.
Like,
dude.
Like, I used to teach at a college around here, but it was all just private lessons. Like, I never taught classes. Like, they tried to get me to teach some classes at a certain point, but I ended up turning it down because the class they wanted me to teach was really kind of stupid. Like, it was this, so I was teaching at this like smaller liberal arts college. And so their music program wasn't that big and didn't have that much going on, but they had enough that, you know, if they paid me and it was easy, they were trying to get me to teach this class that basically, I don't remember what like the name of the class was, but it was even that was like kind of dumb, but basically it was like teaching you how to make a rock band. And it was like, why are we doing this in college? Yeah, I know, right? But it, like, everything about it to me just seems so antithetical to like what actually like making a band is actually like, you know, and like how we all did it like when we were like 12 and 13, where we just wanted to like get in a basement, just do whatever the fuck we wanted to do, rather than go, okay, well, you got to do it this way. And then
it almost seems like how to get discovered by one of those managers that discovered like NSYNC or something.
It was really kind of silly. And then also, you know, having to like actually be teaching classes like that would mean I wouldn't really be able to tour as much, you know, just because if I'm gone even for a month, which isn't that long in the grand scheme of touring, that's a big chunk of the semester already. So like if I'm just teaching private lessons, I can scoot out of that a lot easier. Like there was a couple I just didn't even tell them I was leaving. That's
the hardest part about tour. Tour just comes at random. It's like, oh, it's randomly like during finals, and then that's it. Like,
dude, tell me about it. The last Obscura tour I did in Europe, I had 3 days notice for that.
Jesus.
Yeah, so my life completely changed around in the course of a weekend. So I mean, that's kind of a freak situation, and I doubt that will probably happen again in that same kind of way. But yeah, exactly. They can just completely pop out of nowhere.
Definitely. So I mean, back on you're jamming and stuff.
Well, I was gonna
in general, just generally jamming, and then.
Well, no, we're not even to jamming yet.
We're still talking about me being a kid.
My next question that I've been waiting to say, well, not question but statement, is one thing that I wanted to touch on with you talking about your parents was the fact that they didn't push it on you.
Oh yeah,
that actually is
that's huge.
Something that I think that your parents were cognizant of as musicians.
Oh,
they probably already ran into, you know, resistance from maybe their parents when they wanted to be artists and their parents didn't want them to. And so I think that them being performers and artists from the beginning was a good, indicator that you would grow up to be the dude that you are today, because yes, they let you naturally fall into your element and not pushed you in any direction.
Yeah, and it was mostly just because they just knew how hard it was to be a musician. You know, it's like, even if you're really amazing, it's not set in stone, you know, like, and things can just immediately disappear, like over the pandemic. Like, so I usually play anywhere from like 150 to 200 gigs a year. In 2020, I played maybe 20. And like, I was pretty much taking everything that got offered, even if it was like a little sketchy. Like there were a couple gigs that I did where I was like, all right, well, if somebody has COVID here, we're all fucked. Because like, you know, if you're having a wedding in July of 2020, that obviously means you kind of don't care about what's happening right now.
Yeah.
So there were lots of my friends that like just didn't take gigs at all, which totally makes sense. But in that year, even with taking everything that I did, I still barely worked at all. So it's like things are not stable. Money is not always easy to come by. You know, sometimes people can screw you on money. You know, it's not this like secure kind of thing. And even if you're really good and you completely devote your life to it, it can still fall apart. So I think mostly because of that, they just didn't want me to, they didn't push me into it and let me find it for myself. So like I remember when I was like 6 or 7, I like had voiced some interest in my dad, like wanting to learn how to play drums just because it was there, but that didn't really stick that much, you know? And when I was in elementary school, I started playing saxophone and did that basically until high school, which I liked saxophone and it was cool, but the love wasn't really there in the same way. Like my parents would have to tell me to practice saxophone, whereas they would have to tell me to stop practicing bass.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So like I did that through high school and like I started playing bass in middle school. But once bass came instantly from the second I picked it up, it just felt like I had found some like lost part of myself that like I, you know, knew about, but had never found before.
So your dad, oh, hey, what's up, dude?
Oh,
hey, dude.
Got another person.
Classes in session. Professor.
You're not Casey.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I'm Joseph. What's up, Alex?
Yo, what's up, man? Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Joseph is here with us, guys.
Yeah. I will interrupt. I saw you with Obscura like 3-4 months ago.
Okay.
Very sick.
What are you talking about in Europe or
No, in Fresno, California.
Oh, that was like earlier this year. That was like 9 months ago. That was a while ago.
Oh fuck, it was quite a while ago.
I know, time's crazy, dude.
Time is crazy.
I remember all these tours is happening in the summer, but I guess it started even earlier than summer. Yeah. So
yeah, that was like one of the first tours to happen really kind of in full. You know, there was a bunch of tours happening around that time, like Cannibal Corpse and Revocation, or I think Nile and Incantation.
Yeah, I caught that one too. It was like February. Yeah, February, March. Yeah.
It was, I mean, it sucked for me because there were all these shows that I really wanted to go to that, you know, obviously I couldn't see. And we kind of felt the competition a little bit that like, again, it was great that all of this stuff was happening, but people aren't loaded. And with all these tickets being like $30 to $40 and you're buying money on merch, you're buying alcohol, parking, gas, whatever, people can't go to every show. So they're going to have to pick and choose. And I think the turnouts were still really good for that Obscura tour, but it would have been even better if there weren't like 6 other tours happening.
Do you know what I think was the perfectly timed tour? It was the Archspire Entheos tour, because that like almost sold out like the whole tour, but it came like right after.
It was right after that first round of tours. It was like in April or something. Yeah,
exactly. That was like I mean, it's like when to find the prime time to get back on the road. That was it, because that was like, everyone's like, oh, it's finally okay to go do like there's more of a mass of people that was down to do it. You know what I mean? To go out and see shows. And we went, even Santa Cruz they played, which last time I saw Archspire in Santa Cruz, they played the tiny stage and there was like 50, 60 people there. And then they play with Entheos over at the Catalyst again. They had to upgrade it to the main stage, which holds like 600-700 people, and that sold out. And I was like, what the fuck? Like that was totally like, that was the time. And I was like, oh god, metal's back forever, it's gonna come back. And then like the next round of tours come and people are like, oh, I spent all my money on that tour. So you know, and like they can't like keep, it wasn't like it was basically like a playing bingo, just like, oh shit, this is the right time to do it. And they
I wonder how purposeful that decision was, like if that was a part of the thought process, like this is going to be like the right time to do it because all these other tours are kind of just finishing, or if like you just said, it was the total kind of luck of the draw and they just happened to hit it at this great
people
time.
are like, shows are back. Like I missed the first big show that came through and this is the second one or third one, you know what I mean?
So I have to go. Yeah,
the FOMO. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, I mean, so we brought a photographer along with us.
That's right.
On that first North American tour. And a lot of the reasoning for that specifically was to just show people that, hey, this is happening again. You know, especially with going into Canada, because we the show that we played in Ottawa was the first show. Honestly, I think it was the first like bigger tour show to happen in Canada since the pandemic had started. So like that, the show that we played that in Ottawa, I think it was the Brass Monkey, I think.
Oh yeah.
Cup or something. That the promoter of that show, that was the first show that he had done since the pandemic. And they opened their doors to basically allow live music just over the whole country, like 2 or 3 days before we got there. So we just like came in right when they opened things back up again. And people were definitely ready to go, like ready to see concerts again. But there were lots of people that didn't buy tickets beforehand because we might have not been able to get into the country, you know, especially with how COVID testing was at that point. That like if, you know, we got turned away at the border, you know, obviously no shows happening. So people didn't want to have to deal with like all the ticket refunds and everything. So the ticket sales weren't looking quite as good until we got into the country. And once we started making all these posts and pictures and videos, then it was like, and it shot up and it was great. But yeah, I think most of the reason of bringing the photographer along with us is to kind of just show people that, hey, this is happening again. Nice. And the world is kind of sort of opened back up.
Can I ask? Can I ask about that tour? 1 or 2 more questions. I remember I have a poster of it, which I got from that Fresno show. I think it says like sponsored by like the Art Council of Germany or something. Okay. Was there like some like, because it's Germany, like Obscura, obviously. So it's like, I know that Germany as a country like supports artists in a way that we're not familiar with. Was there like a grant or something that like helped that tour along with? You don't know about that? Okay.
Not that I know of. I mean, so even with that tour, I was brought in after it was originally booked. So, I mean, that one I had more than like 3 days notice, but it was still only like a month before that tour started. So I was kind of brought in long after it was booked or any of that stuff was talked about. But so maybe, I don't know. I mean, like you said, a lot of European countries are much better about that. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever played that venue in Nijmegen, Netherlands, the one with that crazy bus lift that like, it's basically this thing that the tour bus drives onto, like the tour bus and trailer. It's in this huge loading dock. These like arms come down, it picks up the platform that the bus is around and literally just spins the bus around.
While you're in it?
Well, I mean, I guess you could be in it, but they tell you
to be in it.
Just so that the bus driver doesn't have to back it out of the loading dock area.
Wow.
Where like literally it spins an entire fucking tour bus around just to turn it around so the driver can drive back out. I mean, like that lift itself must have been like over $1 million.
Yeah.
That is not happening in any venues here. Like that, and you know, most of the money from that is like coming from the government or coming from grants or subsidies or something like that. But to answer your question, I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I figured you wouldn't know everything about the business of that band in particular, but I also wanted to just mention
bass player.
It sounded, hey, your bass live. I mean, Obscura is just, you know, one of my favorite bands, and you did more than justice to those parts, and your bass came out really clean in the mix live, and I was like, holy shit, Alex is sounding amazing on all these parts. And I used to, play along to those like Cosmogenesis songs and shit, like, and I was just like, hell yeah, it's so fun to hear these songs live. And so
thank you for helping that one out. It was kind of trippy playing Anti-Cosmic Overload for the first time, how sort of like iconic that song was and sort of the bass parts in that were for like the sort of birth of modern tech death in a way.
Yeah.
Or at least how like a lot of like people like call tech death now.
But I would say that's probably the weakest song on the record, and it just gets better as you go.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Last couple songs that Christian wrote the title track, I think that song is one of my favorites. That's a banger.
Universe Momentum's always a fun one.
That's a good one. Yeah. So yeah, I just, I think I played a couple shows with you before, I think, or at least Las Vegas when you played it with Malignancy a couple years.
Oh, sick.
The
what band were you playing for with that?
To Violently Vomit.
Oh, you were playing with To Violently. Oh yeah, okay. I do remember meeting you now. Yeah,
he's got a hat on.
Yeah,
he had a hat on then too.
Yeah.
Professor.
Yeah, dude. It's I know I've like I think I might have been shy at that point. I'm like, dude, it's Alex Weber. He's like the sickest guy ever. But
it's like I love the bleeding, dude. It's
exactly. You were great in Blood Science back in the day, man.
Hell yeah, dude.
I might have also been completely fried, like just from lack of sleep going there, because like when I flew over there first, so my flight left Baltimore at like 6 a.m. So I usually go to bed at like 3. So it was like, I'm just going to stay up the whole night. Cause like, it's going to make me feel worse if I like go to sleep for an hour and then try to wake up and whatever. I'll just sleep on the airplane. Didn't sleep on the airplane at all. And
anytime you plan to sleep on the airplane, dude, it never fucking happens.
Unless you like, medically induce a coma. It's
right.
For me, I can't sleep sitting up like
nope.
this,
Absolutely not.
So
they should have nitrous on airplanes, like dental offices, like oxygen and nitrous,
or something.
Yeah, you get like one.
They already have the masks for you, so you might as well.
Yeah, dude.
Right.
Cool, man.
Just oxygen, man.
I fucking enjoy this idea, dude. Yeah. Just fucking doing whippets and at 3,500,000 feet in the air, dude.
Remember, you have to give a whippet to yourself before the kids.
In the bathroom. They say you can't do whippets in the bathroom.
Like in first class, you get like twice as much nitrous.
Yeah, exactly. That's just the other mask that comes down from the ceiling. That's the one that's in the secret department.
Exactly.
But yeah, either way, I didn't sleep at all on that flight. And then once you get to Vegas, it's just sensory overload. So you immediately wake up and with some of the extra oxygen that gets pumped into casinos, you just wake up more and all this stuff and get all these people that you're talking to. So it was kind of crazy. So I didn't go to bed that night until 5 a.m. Vegas time. So that would have been like 8 a.m. for me back here. So I was up for like 36 hours straight.
Goddamn.
And most of the time I didn't feel it because we were, our hotel was right on Fremont Street and with all the lights and everything from the LED.
Anything to keep you awake and gambling, dude.
Dude, it was insane. So yeah, maybe when I met you, I was just completely fried from being awake for 36 hours too. But
I mean, that was most people at that festival for sure. It's Vegas metal show. I remember they were like letting people smoke cigarettes inside and stuff too. It was like, oh shit, that doesn't happen anymore except here in Vegas. So
yeah, and that was a pretty crazy, like hectic show too. Because I mean, like Roger's mom. Like,
I know.
The shit that happened, like literally right when the doors were about to open.
Yeah,
like that happened. So it was, I thought maybe the show was just going to get canceled or that Mortician.
You guys really wanted me to ask what's happening in this situation, but I don't know if you guys are wanting to say it on the show.
I don't know.
Well, now you said that.
I mean, his mom died. I mean, that's
shit.
Oh shit.
Yeah. No, he made a public post about it, like right as it happened. So
okay.
Okay.
I thought you guys were saying what happened right when the doors open. I'm thinking Roger's mom died in the venue.
No, then I think the show would have gotten canceled. But
that's
no, she had been sick too, so I don't think it was like this completely freak thing. But again, I don't totally know the situation. Either way, he got the call like right as the doors were about to open. So
God,
he was like the main guy organizing all that stuff. So it was just like, oh, dude, shit,
rough.
But he played that night, and you would have had no idea that anything like that happened.
Well, rest in peace, Roger's mom, dude.
Yeah, that's tough, man. I mean, what do you do in that situation? I mean,
I guess
your mom probably was like, show must go on, and also your mom's like would be. I mean, if she'd probably be like, yeah,
and
have fun and play and stuff.
Probably in New York because he's from New York, right?
Yeah, you're not gonna. There's nothing you can do. Like you've already got the news.
Roger's mom was living in Vegas. I think.
Shit.
He had moved out there. I could be wrong with that, but it didn't seem like it was this cross country thing. Like when I was touring with Jeff Loomis, when we were in Corpus Christi, his dad died. Like when we were on tour, and he found out about it like when we were like setting up during the day. And like, so obviously he's like halfway across the country and he just played the show. He got through it. And again, you'd have no idea. You would have had no idea that had happened to him.
That's rough, dude.
But yeah, then he flew home a couple of days after that, was, there for the funeral for a couple of days. So we had to cancel a couple of gigs on that tour. But, yeah, I mean, in a lot of cases, you just gotta play through it or just,
So I was just gonna say the show must go on mentality. I'm trying to put myself in that situation, and I don't know if I could do it, dude.
I mean, remember the show we played with Odious? There was like literally, I want to say, I don't know, Anthony, if you were in the band yet, but literally like an hour before we were supposed to go on,
No.
I got the call. Yeah, I got the call. Like one of my best friends died. Yeah, just like, well, I heard about the car accident. I heard about like my friend's brother died, and I was already super bummed for that. There, and right before we were about to go on, I got a call going like, "Oh, your friend was in that car too," and I was like, "What the fuck?" You know what I mean? And all Odious was like, "It's all good. You don't have to play." And he was a huge fan of the band, so I was like, "Fuck that, I have to play." You know what I mean? Like it was one of those. He would be like, if there was whatever
Is that
afterlife and
the
he's staring above me, he'd be like,
arsonist?
"Fuck you." No, it was my buddy Evan. This is like
Mm.
2006 or something. This is a
Oh,
while ago.
I've seen you give him shout outs before, Evan.
Yeah. No, it was, but just finding it, and Alicia, like all of my friends from high school showed up from that, and they were just finding out on the road coming there. So and then I just got showered with friends that were just finding the information out too, and we were all really close to them. So we're just like, what the? I just basically told I told one of my buddies that was around, I was like, I need like 2 40s right now. I was like, no, I was young back then. I was like, I need 2 Mickey's 40s or whatever. And I'll do it for sure. But it was just getting that like shocking information. Like, I mean, the day it just turns into this haze of like, you can't even look at people. It's like your brain is so enveloped in something else that you have, like, people could be talking to you and you can't hear anything they're saying. You're just
like those moments in the movies where like all the background noise just turns into
totally. And I hear like the end of it, like, what? Like, I can't. Like, I can't put it together right now. Like, it's you only have limited brain power when you get like hit with like a traumatic thing, like
a bomb like that, because your brain just can't even comprehend it.
Oh, totally. No. So yeah, I mean, it's
and these are guys that are putting the show on after feeling those feelings that you just laid out,
Well, and especially with like the Loomis situation, like that band that's all him. He's basically just soloing the entire time, having to do all this really complicated stuff that is right front and center, so everybody can hear every mistake that you're doing. Everybody's all paying attention to you, and you're having to play with this like huge weight on your chest because of this. So
I can't imagine that. I mean, Jeff Loomis is one of the best guitar players in the world. Like, I can't imagine having to do like a solo where it's a solo, you standing in front and having to like think about these runs you're gonna do and stuff, and like you have no time to really chill. You have to go bananas the whole time.
Yeah, there's videos of that show on YouTube, and that like turned out really good. And again, you'd have no idea.
Was that Conquering Dystopia or
no? That was the other Alex Webster that played on that one. That was with his solo project.
Okay, I was gonna say, I was like, I don't think you played on that, but it sounds like you did in my brain.
Girl, did I miss
lots of people that probably think that I did, but I didn't.
I could see it though. So
yeah, and that was right pretty much after the tour that I did. So the tour that I did with him was in 2013, where we were co-headlining with Soilwork. And that was the very first tour I had ever done, and still the longest tour that I've ever done. It was 57 days, and it was supposed to be 55 gigs. So we were only supposed to have 2 days off in that entire period of time. And we did like a big loop in North America and played all of these like really kind of stupid B markets. Like we played 9 gigs in Texas. Like, I mean, I know Texas is a big state, but like, did we really need to be playing Tyler?
It's like a 4 gig state, right?
Yeah, it's like, okay, if you do Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, Houston, and maybe El Paso, that's But we did like Lubbock, Tyler.
We did Lubbock too.
Yeah. Did you Corpus Christi?
Corpus Christi. That was the day that Jeff found out that his dad died. We were in Corpus Christi, Texas, like literally like almost on the opposite side of the country from Wisconsin, from where he's from. But yeah, so that still is the longest tour that I have ever done, and it very quickly showed me that I really do like touring a lot. Nice. We were driving around in a van, which obviously is not the best thing ever. But we were getting hotels, so it's not like we were, raw.
Jeff Loomis was in a van.
Yeah, he was, but we were, like I said, we were staying in hotels every night, so I guess that kind of evens it out a little bit. So that's still, I mean, that's a lot of driving, and there were a lot of really long drives on that. Like there was one, so we didn't play in El Paso because it would have been like San Antonio to El Paso and then El Paso to Oklahoma City or something. And both of those drives would have been like 10 or 12 hours. And it was like right after we had gotten robbed in St. Louis. So we were just like, dude, fuck that. We're not doing it. So we just ended up not going to that gig and drove to the next one, which was like a little bit closer because it was kind of like this weird zigzagging thing that was happening. So there was some stuff on it that was brutal, and pretty much any bad thing that can kind of happen to you on a tour happened on that tour. Like I said, we got robbed in St. Louis.
That's a bummer.
I mean, it definitely could have been worse than what it was.
Was it like a holdup robbery?
No, it was somebody just broke into our van. So
okay,
we played this venue called the Firebird. And I've actually had other friends get robbed at that venue. So hey, if anybody's watching and you play the Firebird, watch your shit. Because it will probably get stolen. So, and because I think people like case vehicles, they'll like watch what vehicles are doing what, and then they'll follow you.
St. Louis is literally one of the top crime capitals of the United States.
Oh yeah. But so what happened with us on this gig is we packed up, left the gig. We stopped at a Jimmy John's on the way out of town that, was maybe like 10 minutes away from the venue, still like in basically downtown St. Louis, right near one of the colleges that were there. So it was not like we were, in the middle of like barren suburban wasteland. And we parked the van literally right in front of the building, all glass windows. So clear sight line of the van. We were in there for no more than 10 or 15 minutes because we were just getting a sandwich before we left town. And we get back in the van. We didn't even know we were robbed at first because they didn't break a window or anything. I think what they did is they took a flathead screwdriver and kind of like jammed it up underneath the little locking mechanism, because we saw this little like V like cut out right below the little lock thing. So I think they just popped that open, pulled the little lock thing out, unlocked the door, got in, and got away with, like, they hit us at like the best possible day for them. Like it sucked. So our tour manager was going to pay off the rental for the van the next day. So he had $6,000 in cash in the van. And
oh my God, dude.
Yeah.
Yes, that guy bought.
Dude, I bet those guys that found that shit were just like,
I wasn't even thinking about cash. I was just thinking about equipment, dude.
Okay, so they got the cash. And they also got basically all of our electronics. So like my phone, my laptop, I think Anoop might have had a camera. Travis Montgomery, I think, had a camera. Like basically all of our electronics were stolen. So they probably got away with like maybe almost 20 grand worth of shit that day. So dude, they hit.
So you guys had all your music gear in a trailer behind you?
So, well, we didn't even have a trailer. So Soil Work was going around in a bus. So we put some of the bigger stuff in there. But my bass and Jeff's guitar were in the van, but they were kind of like pried between like the very back seat and the window, so it was kind of hard to get them out.
Too much time to try and get it out.
Much time. But it's great because that bass was the very first bass that I ever built. And Jeff's guitar, he had just gotten from some guy that did some like fancy, like custom, like decal, like logo decal on it. So it was like these kind of one of a kind instruments that, sure, maybe it would be easier to find it online if somebody was stealing or somebody was trying to sell it, but it's instruments you can't really replace in a way. So
yeah,
sure, it sucked that like my iPod and my laptop and whatever got stolen, but
it's replaceable.
That's much more replaceable. But it was amazing how quick and efficient they were. Like they must have driven up in a car right next to the van. One or two guys must have climbed into the van, and like sort of like an assembly line, like handing stuff out. Because dude, we were in there for no more than 10 or 15 minutes. We were right there, and they still got in and out, and we had no idea.
That's insane. Yeah, I mean, knowing like there's certain parts of like North America, like a Vancouver and stuff, back when it was like really bad, and we would pull up there, and within the first time we ever did, actually, Anthony, you were with us. The first time we ever did, there was literally Deeds of Flesh's van got broken into. I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes after we pulled up. It was all window band, like people were grabbing shit like right off the bat. It was like it
I
was,
remember.
and then next time we went there,
what city was this?
Vancouver. And then there's been other times there where it's been like we pulled up behind the rickshaw, you know, the rickshaw.
Oh yeah,
behind the rickshaw, and like people were just like, "Oh, this is a cool place to come hide and shoot up." Like, there's like tinted windows, so they don't see us just watching them, and they just like we were there for a second, like doing our thing, just getting like stretching, and we're looking over, and there's a guy like, "Oh, I found a cool place to shoot up over here," and I was like, "Whoa,
dude,
yeah, it's definitely bananas, dude."
Exist did a tour with Obscura back in 2018 for that Diluvium tour that was like a stacked lineup. That was Obscura, Beyond Creation, Inferi, Archspire, and us.
Sick.
And that's basically like where I met the Obscura guys, was on that tours. But so we were playing at the rickshaw. We got there. Actually, we got there first. So we pulled back into the alleyway and just were kind of waiting for them to show up. We must have timed it perfectly for when a dealer showed up, because like we're sitting like really like right behind that back door, and you know there's like that dumpster that's kind of like sort of like one building down. Him and this woman walked into like one of those little doorway kind of things, and then it was just like cockroaches, man. It was like this weird horror movie. They're like scuttering down like the sides of buildings. It was like 30 people just popped out of nowhere. And all started congregating right around where that was, and that was right in front of our van. And the van is on. We're clearly in there. Like the front of it is not tinted at all, so you can see that there's people in there. You know, shooting up. People were smoking it to the point where I could smell it coming into the van. So we had to turn the recirculate button on, because it was like, dude, I'm smelling the crack that these people are smoking right now. Like, this is fucking insane.
And I was like, maybe you wanted to recirculate it to get a little fucking secondhand.
Hey, you want to come in here? But
secondhand crack smoke.
But the crazy thing is that they're like total zombies. Like they don't acknowledge your presence at all. Like with Baltimore, you know, Baltimore's definitely has its share of drug problems, and you see a lot of junkies throughout the city. But they always like, you know, come up to you, like try to ask for money or whatever, or at least acknowledge your presence. Whereas in Vancouver, they're just like,
I've literally said zombies before in Vancouver. It's
they're
like
zombies, dude. Like there's no other way to describe it. They are total zombies. Like there was one time on this last North American tour, I had to like basically pull somebody away from our bandwagon because he was trying to like get into our bandwagon. Like we were loading in and he was just kind of like fumbling around and just like looked up at the door and was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go in there." And he like tried to like walk up the stairs. I'm like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Like I basically had to like pull him off the door because he was just gonna walk in there and make himself.
And then he just like scuffled away.
Yeah, and he got mad at me. Like he started like cussing at me, like fucking you. Like, dude, what are you doing? You just
I know in Portland, I remember one time there was. I mean, I've had that like fucking Vancouver was like in the height. It was like the highest. Not to like get all crazy, but it was the highest AIDS, intravenous like AIDS like distribution, whatever was going on there, because everyone was doing they were using needles so much and stuff out there. And but I remember one time in Portland, we just had a couple they were just heroin addicts just walking down the street.
Just casual heroin addicts.
Cute little heroin addicts, you know, on a date, you know, just walking around. Like
everybody needs love, man.
And they were like, they were like, the van was right there, like, "Hey, do you mind if we like shoot up in your van?" Like, I swear to God, just asked me point blank. And I was like, "No, I mean, yes or no." Or
I appreciate the honesty, but
yeah. Like, whoa, it's like so, like, just like, dude, we're in Portland, bro. Like,
there's a part of you that says, "All right, but can I watch?"
Yeah,
I was
asking like it's completely normal, like that's just something that people ask every day, you know.
Yeah, it was on like a Summer Slaughter where like already like 2-3 bands got like ripped off pretty hard, so it's like I'm already pissed about that. So it's that like bringing those guys in the van would be like the absolute nightmare. It's like not what I want. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So like we were just like, get the fuck out. It was me and Freight Train. James Dean from
What are they
Origin.
going to be able to do, dude? They'll pocket some of your snacks or something. They're not going to be able to grab.
I know it's
anything.
they're gonna nod off and like fucking. They'll probably lose some of their shit in your fucking.
Or they die in your van, and then you have to deal with like the paramedics like hauling them out of there, and like you potentially getting in trouble with that. You just never know.
Oh man, I know.
With that, it's a very easy thing to just say no to. Even though it could have turned your day into something very exciting and different and new, it's probably better you
I don't know how the weed laws are nowadays, but there's been places where back in the day where we would oh, you want to smoke a joint? Sure, smoke a joint with these people. Cops roll up. These are minors, like 17 or something. They're just fans of the band, and we're like, yeah, we'll smoke. And they're like, you're doing drugs with my. I was like, what the fuck? They just offered me a joint. I don't know what's going on. You know what I mean? Like, you got to be really careful about like just being like, yeah, fuck yeah, fans. They're fans of the band, so let's not even worry about it. Like, they're just like dudes going like, oh yeah, have a joint. And you're like, oh fuck yeah, thank you, man. And then it's from a 17-year-old. You're like, shit, like this could be like bad. But luckily the cops were like, I get it, it's all good, just get the skedaddle. You know what I mean? And
it's probably more lenient now. Like you probably wouldn't get screwed as hard as you would before, but still not something I want to
no, that's definitely something. Don't fuck with that.
Definitely
don't accept gifts from strangers.
No, even if they're fans.
If they're fans. Yeah.
So Alex, you started playing bass at what age?
Now I have to piss.
I was about to ask if we wanted to go back to where you were.
We always like to go back eventually. But yeah, we like to hear. Okay, so here we can fast forward a little bit if you want to, because we like to hear high school projects, bands, friends that you met along the way that helped form your metal
who I am.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, so I started playing bass at the same age that a lot of people do. I was like 12 or 13 or something. And the situation was kind of funny because I had these two friends that lived in my neighborhood, that one played drums and one played guitar, and they wanted to start a band. And obviously nobody played bass. So the guy who played guitar, his dad had a bass. He came up to me. He's like, here's a bass. Learn how to play this. And the first day that I picked it up, we had to play this like show at this kid's birthday party. Like the drummer, it was his birthday party, and we had to play. And I'm sure it sounded fucking god awful, but it was hilarious that like literally the first day I picked up bass, I had to play in front of people. But from the second I picked it up, like I said earlier, I just knew that there was something different and something special about it.
You start with a pick or your fingers?
With my fingers.
All right.
Yeah, and it wasn't anything purposeful. Like maybe I like did play with a pick. Like I tried both of them, but like I mostly stuck to just playing finger style in the beginning, even though I was into a lot of like punk and like ska and things like that. Like I was into Rancid and Green Day, or Less Than Jake was another favorite band of mine, like back when I was like 13, 14. Because all of those bands have like pretty sick bass players, or at least bass players that have lines that are kind of like prominent melodic lines. Like the first bass line I ever learned was Longview by Green Day, which is like a bass feature in the beginning. So I sort of inadvertently from the very beginning was exposed to a lot of these like really melodic bass players, and exposed to bands that had, sort of like an importance put on the bass. And then
How old are you?
I'm 33.
Okay. Yeah.
What was that one Rancid song that has like a bass solo?
Murder.
Yeah, dude. Everyone used to go nuts for that thing.
Oh, dude, I remember the first time. I have a perfect memory of the first time I ever heard that.
Yeah.
And just like completely shitting my pants over like it was just blew my mind.
Yeah.
I've actually been thinking about making a cover of that just for shits and giggles, just to say that I did it.
Hell yeah.
I don't know, maybe some point. But so yeah, from like the very beginning, I was just exposed to and really into a lot of bands that had the bass kind of front and center. And then like I really got into Mudvayne, and Ryan Martini was kind of the first major bass influence I ever had, which obviously, again, another very prominent band with a prominent bass player in it, especially with LD50. Like I used to play that album out. It was crazy. But I after like getting into some new metal like that, I quickly started, you know, like I got exposed to a lot of the like true metal through a friend that I went to high school with that was older. And I remember one day he brought over Death, Sound of Perseverance, Halloween, Keeper of the Seven Keys, and there was one more, and I can't remember what the last one was. But
before you continue, I just had to step away, but I could still hear what was going on, and I just want to add to the Mudvayne thing because LD50 really is an album that shows that a very talented bass player can be in the new metal realm.
oh yeah,
I'm cracking up.
I'm cracking the professor up right now
because I just like heard Alex name drop LD50, and I just waiting for Anthony's comment. I realize Anthony's not there, and I'm like, thank God we don't have to have a devolution of this conversation right now.
No, I
but then you like,
right.
I hear what's going on. I'm like, oh fuck.
Yeah,
yeah. I just
was
wanted to back it up
myself, so I couldn't see any of your guys' faces and what reactions might be happening with that. But I have no shame that I was into that band and like that.
That's a great album, dude. And
that album is really kind of something special. That like after that one, they kind of jumped the shark and it sort of got too trendy. But like that first one really had a special characteristic to it, and
I wouldn't even call it new metal.
It's one. Yeah, it's kind of weird. I mean, sure, okay, it's under the umbrella of new metal, but it's this sort of like its own world kind of deal.
Right.
And for a long time, I had no idea that he recorded, I think, the entire album on fretless bass. Because there was a lot of
sounds like it too.
Well, there's definitely moments where it's really obvious, but back in the day, I didn't know that. So I was like, dude, what kind of pedal is he using to like make that shit happen? And I think that inadvertently got me into like using chorus pedals and things like that because I thought maybe it was some kind of chorus or reverb or something type of modulation effect, but it was just because he was playing fretless, you know?
Yeah.
But either way, that still had a really big impact on how I like to hear bass in an album, like in a mix, like what I sort of want the bass to be doing in a band in a way. Like a lot of those early artists, even though they're not really metal at all, or at least like metal in the sense that we're mostly talking about, it still had a big impact on just kind of how I hear what bass or what
like Sean Malone. He's not, I wouldn't call him like
he's not a metal
traditional metal bass player, but his voice and all the cynic stuff and all the metal adjacent stuff that he's done.
Absolutely.
He's playing that on the fretless and the Chapman stick and all this stuff, and it gives it a total different flavor and texture that's going on there. There's like no abrupt lines between notes. Is that really like basically what the fretless is for? Is there's blurring the lines between everything?
I mean, it's a sonic timbral difference. You know, it's not always that kind of like kind of fluid, like amorphous kind of thing. Cause sometimes that can actually hurt like a mix or like hurt a bass performance if you can't really hear a lot of the accents of everything that you're playing. And especially with playing in the lower register, it's kind of hard, you know. And one thing after playing a lot of this Obscura music, that's been a challenge, like getting that lower register to be really clear to what I'm playing rather than it just sounding like so it's I don't know if I still would probably consider myself much more of a fretted bass player than a fretless bass player, even though I have been liking playing fretless a lot. But there's just certain things that are much more challenging with fretless than they are on fretted. But it can be a great sound that can really, obviously case in point with Cynic or Obscura or, with Steve DiGiorgio on Individual Thought Patterns, like stuff like that, has a really cool effect to it.
Right. And those are the references that I always use too for fretless bass and metal. Those guys right there.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny that like I didn't really get into playing fretless in the beginning because most of my idols, especially in metal, are fretless players. Like Sean Malone, Steve DiGiorgio. Obviously, Jaco Pastorius isn't a metal bass player, but he was sort of like my next really big influence after Ryan Martini. So there was all these guys that I was listening to that were fretless bass players, but I never really played it myself. Some of it I think was partially because I kind of like didn't want to sound like them. I like wanted to do my own thing, but then also I never really had any fretless basses that were that good in the beginning. Like I had a couple that just didn't feel very good, didn't sound very good, and I wasn't ever really that interested in playing them. And so maybe if I had a really good fretless early on, I would have started doing it more. But yeah, it was just kind of surprising that a lot of like the dudes that were really formative for me in the very beginning were fretless players, yet I didn't like go down that path.
Were you into Primus?
I was, yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously some of the stuff that he did, which is like not very like fretlessy in the typical sense. I mean, like Jerry was a race car driver, has like the fretless based on Icer's song Dracula. Is that who was on that? What record is that from? Is that from Horror
I thought
Show?
it was Rob Zombie's oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I think
Dracula.
Yeah, with that first band that I was telling you about that like I played on that birthday party, we used to try to cover that song back in the day. It was probably incredibly embarrassing.
With a fretless bass?
Oh no.
Oh, okay, that'd be
I was
amazing.
playing fretted bass. No, I think he was talking that comment was the Iced Earth song.
It's from Horror Show 2001.
And that's Steve DiGiorgio's on that one, right?
I guess so.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's on that one.
He plays on Dracula? Really?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Damn, that's crazy. I didn't.
Yeah, Rob Zombie and Iced Earth are the same thing. They're the same guy in case you haven't, like connected those dots.
Iced Zombie.
That's right. Yeah. What's up with John
Rob
Schaefer?
Earth?
Still like MIA.
Who?
Yeah, I don't know what's up with John Schaefer.
Because I think he like skipped town because of like the allegations and all the stuff that was coming down on him from January 6th.
I'll look it up real fast.
Oh, that's right.
That blew my mind. Like when the day that was happening, I was looking through the pictures, and that really famous picture of him where he's like front and center, doing that. I saw that before any of like the metal sites picked it up. Like the day that it was happening, I was like, no fucking way. Like that is totally John Schaefer. Like what? It blew my mind. I was like, no, that can't be him. That's got to just be somebody that looks like him. But motherfucker, that was totally him.
Whoops.
Damn.
Yeah.
I mean, he's what do you do? You gotta like shave your head and like have like purple eyebrows after that. There's
because it's like, dude, okay, sure, you're not the most famous person in the world, but there are definitely going to be people who know who you are, especially if you're front and center like that. You can't hide, So that's kind of a dumb move on his part, but either way,
he's been cooperating recently, apparently. Whatever.
Oh, has he? Because last I had heard, he like was MIA, like he had down or was just. Like,
I can see older stories saying that and newer stories saying he's cooperating with the feds.
Okay,
probably or whatever.
Probably
he already pleaded guilty at some point. So.
Well, I mean, how could you not? I mean,
it'd be like the.
Sorry, man, that wasn't. I don't know. What
that was the ex singer. That wasn't me.
Like the Johnny Depp of like metal trials. They should just like televise it.
Yeah, plead the fifth.
Somebody shit on somebody's bed and blamed it on a dog.
Yeah, exactly.
Again.
But yeah, so I had a bunch of friends in high school that were a little bit older that were tuned into a lot of these other metal bands that might have been a little bit harder to come by, and so I learned about a lot of them through those guys, which is pretty. I'm pretty grateful for that because I'm an only child, so I didn't have any like older brothers to show me that stuff, or neither of my parents, even though both of them were musicians, neither of my parents were into metal, so they couldn't pass down like a Black Sabbath or a Judas Priest record to me and like kind of start the process that way. So I kind of had to find things out on my own, or through word of mouth.
But I think with what they were doing, it gave you a foundation that not a lot of kids have too.
Sure. It helped me appreciate a lot of stuff that, maybe people don't really get exposed to very often, and also like once I started like showing signs of like actually being serious with music, they were able to point me in certain directions that obviously made me into a better musician, by like pointing me towards teachers that were good, or like showing me certain like some of the first jazz records I ever listened to were from my dad. Like he had some Miles Davis records and some Bill Evans records that were some of the first stuff I ever heard. So having them as parents definitely helped, guide me in a certain direction. And like, for instance, I went to college for music, even though, maybe that's kind of a dumb idea and that degree is never going to do anything for me, really.
Horrible idea.
Yeah, it's not like Obscura was like, hey, what was your GPA in college? Or your SAT scores were only 1,600. Ooh, sorry, you can't play with that.
You can't play music.
Yeah, sorry, dude. Yeah, it must mean you really can't play music. But the thing that I really did appreciate from it and really get out of it is the network of musicians that I make a living with, like back home now. Like all my local gigs that allow me to basically just make all of my money from performing, which is great. And also the discipline that kind of comes along with that lifestyle, and really that type of kind of dedication to music. Being in college, you're like really shown like, this is what you got to do. You got to practice like this, and there is no easy way around it. There's no cheat code. There's no backdoor. It's like, it's that hard work and boom, that's it. So being in that environment definitely, helped with those things, which are, kind of like intangible in a way. It's not like a book fact or something that, I could have like just bought from somebody. It just comes from the experience of being in that environment. So I'm glad that I did it, even though my degree on paper is kind of pointless, and I got lucky that I didn't come out with a bunch of student loan debt too. So that also really helps, because I have a bunch of friends that are still dealing with that stuff.
It's like, dude, he got a music degree from Harvard, dude. Like,
I mean, there are some like really heavy music teachers that teach at Harvard, though. So like, if you went there,
I bet. Yeah.
No, but check me out. Like my thing is this: it's society that makes a degree in certain things not important just because they think that it won't be something that they can pull money out of,
Sure. It's a different thing. Yeah, because it's
it's like, oh, you are you gonna be successful with that degree? Oh, then fuck that degree, dude. But really, it's not about that, dude.
No, it's about what you learn from it. Because like I said, with being there, the piece of paper wasn't the important thing. It's the stuff that I learned in the process, or like the network that I gained from it, that because music obviously works in a completely different way than basically every other job. So like, if you're trying to get a computer or an IT job somewhere, they want to see that maybe you went to a certain college and got a certain degree, or have some kind of past experience doing whatever. But obviously, like I said, it's not like I've ever asked, like I've had a band ever ask for like a degree.
Right.
Yeah. What does a music degree like really help you? Like, what does it really? What profession or what situation? Like classical musician? Like, was that?
So basically, the only environment that really having a music degree actually helps in is if you're trying to teach at a college, or like, for instance, like you said, if you're trying to get into like an orchestra or something like that, is kind of necessary. Like, I've had a couple of colleges in the area ask me if I'd be interested in teaching there, but once I told them that I didn't have a master's degree, they're like, "Oh, sorry." Even though some of these were like private colleges that make their own rules and could have easily just been like, "Yeah, sure, great, whatever. It doesn't fucking matter." Because like some of my teachers in the past, like one of the heads of the jazz department at the college that I went to, he has like a bachelor's degree in psychology, but he's like a nasty trombone player and like killed it at like organizing that department. Or like one of my favorite jazz bass players, this guy named Michael Formanak. He used to teach at this conservatory in Baltimore called Peabody. He went to college for all of about a month, and then he just started playing with Joe Henderson and Jerry Mulligan and all these like huge jazz artists. So it was like, what the fuck am I doing here?
The proof is in the pudding, not the piece of paper. With that, it's
totally. I mean, with music, that's it. Totally.
Yeah. It's like you can watch.
I was going to say, before we move on, I got to give a quick shout out to
Jack
Wilson's in the chat.
Jack's been like one of the most old school fans that we've had on the podcast, and he like made, I think it was a year ago, he sent us like a picture and like made a hoodie and like
his
of his
own
own
hoodie
and
with our logo on it because
He
we
bootlegged
before
his
we did
own merch
merch.
before
we
we
didn't
had
do
merch.
merch for like a year and a half.
Years,
it's like
yeah, like
pro looking. It's like legit looking merch. Like,
That's sick.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
been with us since day one, dude. And it's good seeing you in the chat, Jack.
hey, Jack.
Yeah,
No,
But
for
yeah,
sure.
You know,
shout out.
so some of the bootleg merch gets really funny. Like when Obscura played Mexico earlier this year, we were playing this venue in Mexico City that, like, you know, most tours or most shows, like bigger shows, happen there. And out front, there were all of these stands of all of these like bootleg merch guys that were selling Obscura merch literally right in front of the Obscura show. So it just kind of cracked me up that like there was no separation at all. And some of the bootleg merch actually looked pretty sick. Where it was just like,
you're like, I want to buy some of that.
like, damn, that actually, some of it looked really terrible. But also some of it was like, wow, that's actually like kind of cool and really hilarious that you're selling it like 15 feet away from where like the rest of our merch is.
There was that one story we had Dennis from Spawn of Possession on. I think it was his story where he was talking about they played like Russia or something like that, and there was this like kind of mafia owned club where they made their own merch for the club, and when you went in there, it's like, no, it's like they're gonna get the money, and it's like this is what's going down. And well, like it was like,
whoa,
Sopranos club, like, you know, it's like, no, this is the mafia runs this place, and this is what happens, and this is how it works
you
here.
don't fuck with it, you don't ask questions.
Yeah, you just play the show, and then there's a guy in a suit comes in and just takes the envelope and walks away. You know, it's like, that's what it was a trip hearing that story. I forget exactly how it worked, but it was something along the lines of like mafioso, like running a club. Like
I think that was America, dude. Because I think that was the story.
Is that America?
I think Mike Hamilton was the TM on that tour that they were just talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm mixing it. It was like a year and a half ago. Yeah.
But the Russia, dude, the slam scene in Russia is fucking awesome right now. It's hilarious, dude.
Is it?
There's like all these bands come out of there. Like Insect Inside is one band, and I just like have gone down this rabbit hole, and I don't know. I think Slaughter to Prevail is from Russia, and they're like the biggest. They're not slam at all, but like it's kind of from that.
Are they Russian?
I think so.
Yeah. I think they
if
are.
they were Russian or Ukrainian. I knew they were, you know, like that part of the world in some capacity, but I couldn't remember which one they were.
I think they're right, because I think they were one of the first bands to like, what do you guys think about the situation that's going on? And they were like, shit, you know, like, oh, it sucks.
Next question, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a pretty hilarious to see like all these kind of like generic kind of bands come out of there. They all have like the monster on the album cover, and it's like epicodabagidectomy or whatever the name is, like 18 syllables. But they're all sick. Like I like it. You know, for generic music, it's all good.
Have you guys seen that the like Loud Farm Fest thing? It's like in Slovakia or something. It's got like there's the one video to do with the pig mask on, and he's like bent over, and they're like slapping his ass as they come around. Like it's so crazy, dude.
Oh wait, you did send us that recently.
Yeah, dude, it's insane.
Loud
He's wearing
Farm.
like some weird Speedo that goes like all the way up to his shoulders, like. Dude,
it's a Borat Speedo?
Yeah, exactly, dude. It's insane, dude.
Wow.
Yeah.
And they just slam death metal around them, and
the Loud Farm Fest. I forgot what the name of that band is. It's like one of those names, like, you know, Floppa da Baba da Tropsy or some shit.
Yeah, exactly. Tripsy.
Yeah. But like
some like made up medical sounding term.
Exactly.
They do like the pig squeals, but there's this dude with a pig mask on, and he's like kind of like doing the whole like dominatrix thing, like, and everyone like goes like in a circle on the stage, and they like
slap his booty,
dude. Yeah, dude. I sent you the video, bro.
I know, but did they really do that? I may have watched like 10 seconds of it, dude.
Or have you guys seen those clowncore videos where like
I love those.
Porta potty, the other one was
Porta
in a minivan.
I actually really enjoy, and I actually enjoy the music too. And then I see that they're booking shows here and there, and they're selling out all crazy. So I'm like, fuck
it's
yeah,
Lewis Cole.
That's what it was. I was like, man, I know it's somebody that's in the jazz world, and I had recently found
who is this?
Lewis Cole. He's a drummer.
And
I mean,
what is it? What else does he do?
He does a lot of his own music. He was in that band Knower, right?
Yeah.
So it, like, I think maybe the first thing that like got really popular with him was Knower, which is just a duo with him and I think her name is Genevieve Artadi.
Yep.
And it's like, you know, you wouldn't really call it jazz. I mean, it's kind of like coming from jazz because it seems like both of them have like had exposure to that. And I think Genevieve's like uncle is Dave Binney, or like she has some kind of connection with Dave Binney, which is this great improvising like jazz saxophonist. So they have connections to that world, but it's definitely more like on the indie side of the spectrum in a way, sort of like quasi dance music. And
Nowhere like open for Red Hot Chili Peppers on a Europe tour.
Wow, I didn't know
I think
that.
that was like a break for them, but I don't think it was like super well received.
Yeah, that seems like kind of a weird combination, and especially with how the Red Hot Chili Peppers are now, I could see a lot of their fans just going completely over their heads.
But all the Lewis Cole.
And by the way, Clowncore does not work with any of these bands that we've talked about right now. What is Clowncore? We got to talk about what Clowncore is.
Oh, if you're not seen,
and also too, we got to talk about why. No, he's seen the videos.
No, I've definitely seen them, but I want the audience to hear us explain it.
We have to talk about like why core gets added to everything. Like it's like, oh, it's a style, and they're like core.
I think that's the joke,
core.
Maybe. I think that's probably playing into that thing, and it just seems like that whole thing just came about as a complete joke, like Lewis just being like a total dingus and just wanting to like make something that's crazy and stupid, and that's where that came from. I don't know the background of it, but obviously, like, you know, a bunch of us have seen those videos that kind of went viral and circulated around just because of how like ridiculous they were.
Joel,
clowndectomy.
Yeah,
Joel, can you watch these videos for a second, dude?
I'm trying to. I can't highlight.
Can you do it? I don't.
What I was going to say with the Clowncore thing, they're not obvious. They're obviously. It's a parody. It's satirical. They're making fun of the fact that everything is core.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, like Hiatus Coyote calls themselves Wondercore, which is awesome.
Why is it shoegaze? It should be shoecore, dude. Anyways,
Gazecore.
Gazecore.
To speak on the new jazz shit, have you guys heard of the group Domi and JD Beck? I think it is.
Yep.
Dude.
I'm into it.
Okay, so I don't know enough about them, but who's Domi and who's JD Beck? Is JD Beck the drummer?
Yeah.
That
Domi's
dude fucking rips, dude.
Yeah, JD's rad.
He really fucking like makes me excited when he plays, dude.
Yeah, Lewis is in that same kind of ballpark too. Like all of the like Nowhere's kind of maybe sort of like JD Beck and Nomi, like kind of in that sort of side of the spectrum. But yeah, all of those people are amazing, like legit musicians, and they just happen to, you know, make more like this indie kind of trip hop, whatever you want to call it. Kind of
yeah.
But they get to these realms at certain parts in their music, even just watching their videos, where I'm like, I'm just blown away that I can still be excited about like crazy shit that people are doing, you know?
Yeah.
I like that they're kind of like using new like textures and drums, like treating snares, like throwing stuff on top, or putting something on the cymbal, or using like new like FX cymbals and stuff.
Oh yeah.
And they're usually like small kind of like mini kits, but you can get like really cool sounds, and you know they'll always like drop into like a Dilla part, and you're just like the stank face and everything. It's like it's exciting shit. Yeah, and they shred, and the collaborations they're doing with like they got Snoop on a track, they got freaking Kamasi Washington's on like all those records, and it's like Brain Feeder. So
a Grammy nomination on that new their debut, right?
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure they got a Grammy nomination on their
like,
debut. Dude.
I don't think they're even 21 yet. I think they're both like 19 or
20. Kids, dude.
Yeah,
they're kids, and they have great content. So yeah, dude, go check that shit out.
So this is what go ahead.
No, I was just gonna keep going until somebody tells me to stop.
Shut up.
This is what Casey was talking about. The fucking.
That's worth it, dude. You guys just
oh my god.
Yeah, dude.
I love they're doing like a circle pit
turn it up,
taking turns.
Anatomy.
They turn it up. You look at the pig, dude. Just give it a second. There he is.
He's just waiting.
I know. Yeah.
When he gets slapped, he puts his head up.
Oh, you gotta take advantage of that wireless setup you got.
Right, yeah. We were looking it up. It's like in Slovakia, I think.
This reminds me of I played a gig with Malignancy for this festival out in Illinois earlier. I guess
Did anybody hear that growl at the end, dude?
Yeah.
it's ridiculous. Yeah.
Was it that? Was it the one where Exodus headline and the
Full
fucking
terror assault? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Was that
Trying
one?
to be all serious and normal after that, dude.
Yeah, I know, right? Yo, yeah,
It's
okay.
like, back to business. Yeah. So, anyways, Exodus and Motimus. It's like, come on, dude.
I mean, hey, we've all seen stuff
what
that's
we
way
all
more
just
fucked
saw.
up than that.
That got me deep.
True, true, but Jesus, dude.
You're gonna be thinking about that
I
when
haven't
you
seen
go to bed
anything
tonight.
about that in a long time.
But this band that is sort of friends with Malignancy called Sexual Atrocities. They were on that festival, and that video kind of reminded me of some of their live performances, because they'll just like wear these like crazy, like almost like guar sort of like outfits, and just beach balls and shit are like flying around everywhere. And it was at like a smaller kind of stage festival like that. No naked pig guys on stage, but
Almost as cool.
Almost as cool.
Well, they had the Exodus had like the mosh pit with the golf carts in it.
Dude, I was standing right on the outside of that, and I'm so surprised nobody got hurt. Because like when that started, I was like, dude, this is gonna turn into a clusterfuck, because people were hammered and like sitting on top of the golf carts, and like there were these weird, like, I don't know what you would call them. They looked like these big spools that you would like wrap cable around, that they just like had in the middle of the field, and people were like rocking back and forth on them. Or there were these cages that were on top of them that people were like rocking in the cages. And I was like, dude, this is going to fall over and kill somebody. Like, this is insane.
Yeah.
Jesus.
TVV got invited to play that fest. We didn't make it, but
it was
when
fun.
I saw that, I was like, God damn, that would have been sick.
Yeah, and it was at the festival grounds that the meeting of the Juggalos used to happen at. Like, yo, this shit was in the middle of nowhere. Like, driving into it, I was like, dude, what?
You know what I'll say now that Anthony's not here, so we can't get into it.
Talking about Juggalos. And
no, real quick.
Oh, he's coming back.
He's back. Shit.
Hey, hold on.
Back, bitches. What are you talking about?
But
you're talking about Juggalos, dude.
No. Well, Anthony. So Anthony was like, he had listened to him back in the day, but I listened to who's not the big one, but the skinnier one.
Shaggy Two Dope.
Shaggy Two Dope.
Yeah.
So, dude, he was on. I watched the Your Mom's House podcast with him the other day, and he is a fucking comedian, dude. I was like cracking up. He was cracking up Tom Segura and Christina Pazynski, like to the point where they couldn't breathe, and I was sitting there laughing with them. I was like, this dude like could have been a comedian and decided to be.
Have you ever seen the video of him trying to drop kick Fred Durst while he's playing, and he misses and just falls on the ground?
That sounds amazing.
He literally comes out from backstage, tries to drop kick Fred Durst during a Limp Bizkit concert, and completely misses, and just drops to the stage, and then security takes him and throws him off. And he's in his makeup and everything, dude.
He's actually like, I don't know one song by them, but he was fucking
it's terrible.
But he was hilarious as a comedian. I was like, he was cracking them up, like, and he was cracking me up. I was like, you could have done either comedy or like clown core.
That's what that group has always been.
He didn't. It was funny. It wasn't an either. It was like he did both. Like in
I think it's him. I think he's the funny
one.
They're
not that good at rappers, but I mean, they had some funny premises. That's what it was.
Just watching him freestyle, freestyle as in like talk in his like wittiness. He was like killing. He was like funnier than Tom Segura. Like
or
he was like funnier.
I don't know about that.
Oh, you would watch it.
Like, why Fago?
I have.
Yeah, no, like, Fago. I know why Fago. That's kind of like a funny.
Yeah, like why is that even involved? So I feel like.
Have you ever bought Fago?
Oh
Fago?
yeah,
I've seen it. I've never bought it.
Half the bottles are flat.
Yeah, it was weird. I bought a 2-liter of it when we were playing in Chicago. I have a picture with me holding like a big 2-liter of orange Fago, and it's not good.
It's not good.
It's not good.
It's not that good.
It's
It's
terrible.
Like, I don't know if I'd call it flat, but it definitely does not have the same level of carbonation that normal sodas do. So it's
one thing I was thinking about today on the way to work, I was driving and I was thinking about I was drinking a carbonated water. It was a bubbly that had like 35 milligrams of caffeine in it. And I was drinking it and feeling it go down my throat, like the spicy, like it's like I was burping immediately. I'm like, is this a good thing to like carbonation?
No,
Is that
not.
a good
It's
idea
not.
for
It's
humans?
not at
Like,
all.
let's drink a like oxygen water that goes in as bubbles into our system and like
oxygen. It's it's a different gas that makes it.
But
happen.
still, like it holds
carbon
bubbles.
dioxide or something.
Carbon dioxide.
Yeah, that seems pretty chill. I guess cigarettes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all the other stuff we put into our bodies, I guess there could be much worse things.
Yeah, it's like it's a carbonated water. It's like, yeah, it's water, but like it feels like your throat's telling you when it's going down. It's like it's burning. It's not good. This should get this away from you.
Mayday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alert.
Yeah.
I know. But it's fun. That's the whole thing.
So
it's literally
this might be a
fun.
Tangential, but okay. In the Middle Ages, beer was safer than water.
Yep.
So we developed a taste for carbonated drinks because that signified safety.
But was it carbonated back then?
Well, it was mead mostly, and I
Yeah,
don't know.
mead.
Yeah, so I don't know. Like, it probably didn't have as much carbonation as like a beer did.
This is where I need the professor. I need to know: can natural carbonation happen?
I don't know. Yeah. Not my
So-
specialty.
So that's what I'm saying. Like beer then may have just been like
Let's Google it.
our version
Yeah, let's
minus
Google
the
that shit.
carbonation.
Yeah. Not sure.
Can carbon? Because I know
But
they
dude,
like
just
people.
think about that. Like back in the day, people couldn't drink water because it wasn't safe. So they're basically just drinking alcohol all day long. Think about how fucking hammered everybody was all the time.
Oh yeah, not
Yep.
only
They're just
that,
drinking
dude.
flat beer though. They're drinking flat beer the whole time.
No,
When they
like it was easier to ferment harder alcohols than simpler ones. So
Going into from the 1800s to the 1900s or whatever, dude, there was absolutely no regulation on any chemical we were able to be sold and ingested. And dude, you can go onto a JC Penney's catalog. I forget how early it is, but you could buy a shoot up kit from the JC Penney's catalog.
A shoot up kit?
A shoot up kit to
Like
shoot your morphine. To shoot your morphine, dude.
Oh my god!
Jesus Christ.
and
okay,
and
this is
and
right.
back
This comes from the fermenting
before
process. Okay.
Before medicines and shit, it was just tonics and elixirs, dude. And you look at the ingredients of the tonics and elixirs for
So
all
cocaine.
ages. It was morphine, cocaine, cannabis.
Make you feel good. That's
It was just like it was just like oh,
It ain't
we'll
doing
make you
shit,
stop
but you're gonna feel
coughing.
good.
Yeah.
We'll bring you to the point of almost not breathing, but you're gonna not cough.
Yeah, if you don't breathe that much, you won't cough because you don't take enough inhales.
So that's what I'm saying. Like 120 something years ago, people were just walking around all hopped up on fucking coke and heroin and meth, and they were just like, "Dude, let me get a fucking croissant, dude." Like,
It says natural carbonation occurs when the yeast converts sugars into CO2. The fermentation vessel, the CO2.
oh, so it happens naturally.
Yeah, has no.
And also, it can come from volcanic gases dissolved in springs or wells of natural water. This naturally occurring sparkling water.
Look at us learning.
There's like the natural, like the
CBD,
the spring water that's like carbonated or something. Okay,
Here we
so
go.
the fermentation.
Okay, we go. The end of prohibition.
Pro
we
brewery,
gotta read it for the listeners. We gotta read it for the
there's
listeners.
natural carbonation from CO2 buildup and fermentation, but most beer is carved in bright tanks via a carb stone.
Okay,
Carbstone.
so it's added later.
So the carbonation we drink is a natural thing.
No, it's added later. It's right, the
Oh,
carb stone.
Okay, so
beer.
but he's saying back in the day there was carbonation to beer because from the natural fermentation. We just we're we don't want it's not bubbling enough. We need to add some shit. Dude.
Pretty much.
Bubbling. So the bubbling though, we got all used to that, but that was like from natural.
I think it's
carbonation
oral.
bubbling.
I think it's more oral fixation than anything, dude. It's just like you put something in your mouth. Like I'm looking
fancy.
for a
Yeah, it
fucking
feels
party.
fancy. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm looking for.
Like,
a
that's why we
party.
loved Pop Rocks, dude. You know, as kids, we loved Pop Rocks. You know?
So you left and we just started talking about carbonated water. That's where the conversation.
So was Exist your
minutes
first band that got all serious, or
sort of? It definitely was one of the early ones because I've been involved with Exist for a long time. So I met Max at the end of high school. We actually met at this weird DIY venue in Frederick that I think it was called The Space. But basically, it was this guy's garage, that it was this separate garage from his house. So it was like out sort of in his backyard. And it was so sketchy. Like inside the garage, it was just lined up with all these like mattresses and shit. So it looked kind of like a loony bin, you know, like you see like a guy in like a straight jacket, you know, like freaking out. Basically that. It was super dirty. You had to get in there, you basically had to like crawl through this glory hole that it like wasn't even a door. It was like this that you had to like insert yourself in. And it was like, especially because most of the stuff would happen in the summer, so it would get stupid hot in there. And it was really, really gross. And I get there, this band called Buster Hyman was playing.
Nice.
Okay. And it was this like weird, like shitty kind of noise core band. So I went in there, came back out, and then Max and Anoop walked up because they used to be in a band together back in the day. And, it was one of those moments where you were like, oh, dude, you're wearing a Morbid Angel shirt too. Fuck yeah. So, there was definitely like a connecting point on whatever metal shirts we were wearing at the time. So that's when I first met him. And Exist had kind of been a thing sort of at that point, but it was under the name Azrael at that point. And they had another bass player, but that guy didn't really work out because on that very first album they did, he just did not do very good. So they basically kicked him out after that and brought me in. They almost had me re-record that very first album that we did that also just never got released. But that was kind of the beginning of Exist in a way. Like Alex Rudinger was in the band at the time. So when I joined, it was me, Max, and Rudy. Has Anoop not been on the podcast yet?
No. He was on the Copper Crab podcast, which used to be down the street. They moved to Tennessee, and now we got Cali on lock now. So
that's
maybe
right.
We'll get him.
Yeah. They're not down the street anymore. But it was kind of cool growing up where I did, because there was a lot of, there was a lot of music happening, period. But then there were a lot of these artists that would like kind of go on to like really do something, like Max and Rudy and Anoop. And Periphery is from like right where I'm from. Animals as Leaders is the same thing. So like I saw Animals as Leaders' second show that they ever played at some like tiny ass venue in Baltimore. Like Matt Halpern was still playing drums for them. And like 5 people were there. There was another show that one of my other bands before Exist, we played for some metal club at some college in Virginia. So we were basically playing in a cafeteria, and the show was my band, another band, and Periphery. And like Periphery's playing for like 10 people in a cafeteria. And this was crazy. Like when like Misha had a couple of videos up on YouTube or proto YouTube or whatever it was at that point of like him playing some of this stuff. Obviously it was on MySpace. So they were starting to like get a little bit of attention, but this was before anybody knew of them at all. So kind of just being surrounded by a lot of this like really killer music that's happening, and a lot of these musicians that would then go on to like do bigger stuff. It was pretty inspiring because it set the bar pretty high at a pretty early age. It was like, oh shit, okay, these guys are doing this and going this hard at it and being this good at it. It's like, oh, I guess I have to compete with that.
That's the attitude. I think that's the attitude that people need to take, is like, once it's not like fuck them, we're gonna crush them. It's like, oh shit, that's the bar now. Well, we have to do something different, or like push it, because I know there's a lot of bands like back in the day that were like death metal mainly, that was like, fuck this, we'll crush them. You know what I mean? It's like when you have bands that are so like above and beyond, you're like, all right, shit, we need to rethink how we do things and push it to another level.
And it's also just inspiring too, because it's just like, wow, that's amazing.
Oh, and definitely.
Like, it makes, regardless of any like feelings of competition or anything like that. It's just like, holy crap, that is amazing, and gets me thinking about music in a different way. Or maybe that's a sound I never heard. You know, like when I first heard Periphery, I was like, dude, what the fuck is this? Like, this is completely different than anything that I had heard at the time. And, you know, then I went and kind of dug in deeper on stuff and found out that obviously everything comes from somewhere. Super inspiring, because it was like, dude, I had never heard anything like this before. So yeah, it can be hard to, you know, not fall into any kind of like self-deprecating or like egotistical kind of places when you're around musicians that are that good, because either, like you said, it could be like, oh, well, fuck those guys, I'm gonna do it way better, or like, oh man, I'm nobody because they're doing it.
You gotta find a middle ground of like, fuck yeah, they're doing something sick, and we gotta fucking do something sick too.
You got to find the middle ground where you're like, I know personally, for me, I have room for improvement, and these other colleagues of mine are showing me that. Now what am I going to do with that?
Yeah. And just because somebody is good and doing a strong version of the thing, that doesn't mean that you can't do your own version of that thing. It's not like there's one death metal band or one black metal band. It's like so many different bands that kind of have a lot of these similarities, but it's just like people. It's like, you know, I'm not you, you're not me. And we all speak English and we talk in similar ways, but we have different personalities. We have different ways we use language. We just interact with people differently. And it doesn't make one of us better than the other. It's just a different example of the same kind of thing. So it doesn't matter if like one band is like killing it right now. It doesn't mean like you can't also be killing it. You know?
I don't know. I mean, now we have this podcast and stuff, and listening to my language and how dumb I sound a lot. I'm like, surfer bro, idiot. Like it really, like, it's. I'm looking at.
Yeah, you're right.
But like, it's actually, I didn't know how dumb I sounded, and now I'm like, oh, I need to start. I'm saying, like, how many times we all say like. Listen to this. It's
you're the most, dude.
It's such a build, or it's such like a time. See, like 10 times I just said it right there.
Yeah.
But it's such a time. It's like
fills in the gaps like, between your thoughts.
Yeah, you know, with Europeans, they go they do like an thing. You know, we say like, just kind of like. I need a second to think about my thoughts. Next thought, blah blah. Like next thought. Because it builds you kind of like a second to give yourself a I'm surging, yeah. But seriously, though,
are you drinking Surge, or is that like a beer? Because do you guys have?
No, these are White Claw Surges. They're 8%.
Oh shit,
White Claws.
Yeah, Joel goes serious in his seltzers, dude.
Yeah, I haven't drank
serious seltzer situation.
Dude, those I bet those creep up on you too. If they're 8%, that'll
I mean, it helps being 245 pounds, but
still,
they can bite you at the end. There's been times on this podcast before I'm like, everything's good. I'm like, I gotta leave. I'll just text everyone in the background. I'm like, I gotta leave, guys. Yeah, I'm not even like vomit. It's like I just can't think of things to say anymore. It's like, dude, you fucking all right, let's go. I just can't do it
you're still awake. Nobody's fallen asleep yet.
Yeah, we're all good now.
No, definitely. No, I can handle it. It's just
and Mr. 3 a.m.'s like, let's keep going, dude.
That's right, man. This is early for me.
Oh, damn. Yeah, no, totally.
The best is when everyone's like passing out, and then like the guest is like 3 hours ahead, and they're like still awake.
No, we're good.
And we're like,
we got to go to work in the morning, dude, and they have to go to work too.
It's like 10 o'clock, guys.
Yeah.
All right. So sorry, I'll just try to get us back on track.
Good.
So I kind of left, so I'm not sure if we finished up with kind of how Exist got started. You know, Baltimore scene, everything, all these sick like prog bands. And you guys felt like kind of part of that.
Yeah, we were. I feel like we were maybe, you know, pun intended, on the periphery of kind of that whole scene. That we were at the time. Like Exist's earlier stuff was much more death metal, you know, like kind of like Nile or Morbid Angel. Like, so our first record that got released under Exist name was called Sunlight, but there's another record that got released, like a full record that got released way before that we just never actually
promoted,
really released or promoted. And that album is like, like much more like Nile or Decapitated or Morbid Angel, like that, like kind of death metal. So we were always kind of like the more sort of like old school death metal kids kind of hanging around the periphery of like all of the because there was a lot of deathcore happening, like early deathcore, like Job for a Cowboy, Suicide Silence, like what those bands like started off sort of as. Like there was a big scene for that in Maryland and Northern Virginia. The metalcore thing was at its height at the time, sort of like in the mid early thousands. So we were kind of always like
early thousands.
Yeah, like 2005,
the early 2000s. I was like the early thousands.
thousands. Oh yeah, well, yeah, like the metalcore that was happening in the
the medieval metalcore that was happening. Like,
you mean the real first?
Dude, I bet you anything there was medieval fucking metal shit that was going on. That super heavy, evil sounding shit that everybody in the town was like, "What the fuck are these kids doing?"
That's where drone metal started, was Gregorian chants. But yeah, in the early 2000s, so we were a part of it and around it, but we were always kind of like slightly different in a way that we were into some stuff that not everybody was maybe into, at least in our area. But we were still playing a lot of shows. We opened up for a lot of different artists. Like, I don't know if any of you guys have played at that. It doesn't exist anymore, but there was this venue in Springfield, Virginia called Jack's.
Oh yeah.
Oh hell yeah, dude. We love
Heard about Jack's.
I loved it, man. I mean, it was kind of a shithole, and like
we had a great bloodletting at Jack's.
Jack's is great.
I remember Springfield very well. That a lot of people came out. We sold a lot of merch that night. Jack's was good to us, dude.
It was definitely it used to be the spot, like the touring spot that a lot of like sort of mid to higher tier bands would come through. But the recession in 2008 kind of fucked it up a little bit, because before that, like, tours were coming in all the time and I was going to shows all the time. And I think when the recession happened, the owner probably just kind of just gave up a little bit, because Jack's had been around since the 90s, so it had been around for a while, and the owner was kind of a cokehead. And so like if you caught him on a good day, super cool, but if you caught him when he wasn't, high, he would yeah, thought you fell asleep there for a second.
God damn it.
Dude,
Casey is
getting called.
Somebody
else is getting called out for that.
This is Casey on the podcast right now. He's like,
no, but you just got called out for sleeping, dude. And isn't that been me the last 2 weeks, dude?
Yeah, Gabe Stieber commented on my post. It's like, all right, we're placing bets on if Anthony's gonna fall asleep.
And it's Joel, dude. He fell asleep for
I got an important text, dude.
No, dude, you fell asleep for 1 second.
I got my eye on you guys.
I'm gonna be up till like 2 in the morning. I'm gonna have to work at 7.
Don't give excuses, dude. I didn't when I got caught.
Put it all on me. Yeah, do what you want.
I want to get your thoughts. I want to get your thoughts on like the periphery, animals leaders style kind of coming out. Like, to me, it felt like that like made metal like very, like, the idea was to like kind of make it modern and I hate to say this, and massive. That's like obviously the package.
I was about to say there's product placement.
Yeah. But like I want to say that there's like this kind of like ethos in the air, like, metal's cool. Metal is something, it doesn't make you an outsider to like. You can have like cool shirts and merch with it on. It's like not an underground thing, but it's also not like super mainstream. It's like kind of hybridized kind of attitude about it, and it's been like incredibly successful. Like that kind of ethos and attitude about it. And I was just wondering, like, if you kind of relate to it in a way, because you're kind of, like you said, on the periphery of that scene.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think they found a really kind of special thing, because like you said, the music isn't, some basic bitch, just easy pop music. Like, there's a lot of stuff happening in it, and especially like that first Periphery record, there's like some really crazy riffs and really, a lot of heavy musicality in it, but they were able to package it in a way that could, get to a lot of people. And I think that's not necessarily an easy thing to do in a way.
Yeah.
it's hard for me to say like how much maybe it's gotten people to like feel cooler about metal and maybe people outside of the metal world to accept it a little bit more. But it is cool to see that a, sort of trendier style of music that's come up is involving music that's like actually pretty involved and like has some pretty heavy stuff going on in it.
Totally.
Like
I think it got a lot of kids to want to play guitar for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like with Animals as leaders, like especially with a lot of like the thumping stuff that Tosin is doing, he really has his, a very unique personality with that. Some of the stuff on that new record, like that single Monomyth, that shit is crazy. Like I tried learning some of that stuff, and dude, it's really, really hard.
I think their new one is possibly their best record, dude. Like I like them all, but fuck yeah, dude, this one is. It's like hard to not like it every time I put it on. I'm just like, this might be the best one, dude. Holy
Absolutely.
shit.
Yeah. I mean, for me, like it was kind of hard to top that first one in some regards, just
absolutely
because like, it was so new at the time. And again, I had heard some of that stuff before it like really like blew up. So that was kind of my first exposure to it. But I will agree, the new one is definitely maybe it is my favorite, maybe it's my second favorite to the first one.
It's definitely a little more like a comeback because like Madness of Many was like very much like kind of a drummer showcase, I feel like, and they were like, throwing a lot of what Matt added to the band, and they kind of like brought back a little more of like the epicness of like the first couple records of like the first in particular. Yeah, that's really cool. You were around for that stuff.
Was the Joy of Motion? That's what was the third one was called, because it was like the original one, Weightless, and then the third one, whatever
that's
that
right.
one. I like that one a lot. Like there was some really cool hooks on that and really some interesting stuff. But yeah, this new one is pretty.
I feel like such like an old school metal fan with them, because same kind of deal with me with like Tosin was playing in Born of Osiris when we were on tour with them. He like filled in last second. And like had these this new band called Animals Leaders, and so I was listening to it and I was like, Jesus, man, it's pretty cool. I didn't know it was going to be as big as it was going to be, but I was like, that's fucking shredding, man. It's crazy. And
dude, it's wild.
Yeah. And then we toured with them, and they were playing right under us too, which sucked even more. Like on Summer Slaughter, it was like us, or no, it was them, and then us, and then like I don't know, Cephalic.
It was Vader first, or no? Sorry, not Vader.
No, it was a Summer Slaughter. It was their first Summer Slaughter they did with Naveen was on drums.
Vital Remains first, right?
Vital Remains first. That's right. But like hearing that and seeing the kids that showed up for Animals as Leaders, like that early on, it was like everyone was there for them. Like I was like, this should be your guys' headlining like tour, I think it was Decapitated was the headliner.
Yeah.
But
dude, that was right when they came back, right after like Vitek had died. That was like one of the first tours.
Yep. It was their first headliner. Like it was like a comeback thing. Yeah, it was a big comeback thing. Yeah.
So powerfully. I was at the show in Baltimore for that.
Oh yeah. Where was the tour there? Was it Sonar?
Sonar, yeah.
Oh yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
No, that was awesome, man. I mean, and seeing like what the new thing. I mean, like watching Tosin just as like an opener guy, going like, "Hey, you want to jam out for a little while?" Like, and showing me these new techniques. I'm like, "No, you're insane. I'm not gonna
I don't know what you're doing right now."
Yeah, he'd walk around. I remember the House of Blues in Hollywood. He was walking around with this new technique that he just figured out. And he's just like he's mastering it, because those guys, like I've talked about it many times on the podcast, those guys would show up to the fucking show. They would set up their fractals with their little PAs, and they would jam 4 or 5 hours, pack up, get ready for stage, play on stage, get back off stage, reset their shit up in the backstage, and jam again for until the end of the show. They were like jamming for 8 hours a day. Like that was just them just like walking around with the guitar, like trying to figure shit out constantly. Like to me, it was just, I had never seen anyone like that, like practice so much and like trying to find the new thing. They're the first people with fractals. I'd never seen fractals. They were it's this new thing, and they had to like set it up on the screen and be like, all right, so we got to put the thing. It was like the first fractal. Like
it was like the Line 6, the pod, the red one. Was it that one, or was it a fractal?
It was the original fractal. It was the fractal one, but he had the pod as like a kind of like a practice thing he had there. Yeah. But like he was like showing me how to do it, and it was on screen through parameters it was basically like code, like making your tone, and they were just all about it. Just like, this is the new thing. This is crazy. Blah, blah, blah.
It's all about priorities, dude. I mean,
he wanted it more than any, like Tosin wanted
that's
it
what I'm
more
saying.
than anyone.
So you're talking about like the guys that set up and jam for 4 or 5 hours before they play, and then afterwards they set up and
There's bands that like practice. They're like, oh, we're worried about the show, so we're gonna practice. He's like learning new stuff.
We're just like, oh, we got here. Okay, what do we have to do? We have to load our shit out into the place, and then what are we gonna do? We're gonna go get drunk. We're gonna go smoke some weed. Go find some food. Then we're gonna go smoke some more weed.
For us, it's like a celebration. Like all the work we've done and stuff. It's like, oh, let's celebrate. Let's
party.
have fun. Yeah, let's have a fun time. Let's like not be all like professional. It's which he had that wavelength about him that was like professional. Like, I want to do this the right way, and just did it the right way.
And that's why he's a world-renowned fucking shredder.
And
yeah.
Tosin dropped out of high school, so
dude, and I want anybody who's listening to this right now,
drop out of high school, man.
Drop out, quit.
Just jam 8 hours a day instead.
No, if you're a fan of Animals as Leaders and you have not checked out Reflux, go back in time, people, because that's what Tosin was doing before all that.
With Evan Brewer, Ash Advilton,
yeah.
We've dropped it many times on this podcast, but there's a reason. Like, you guys love Tosin. Like, there's more Tosin if you go back in time.
I feel like Tosin should be like a Wooten brother. Like,
so basically he learned a lot of that, apparently, that double thumping stuff from Evan Brewer, who learned it from Reggie
Victor.
So,
Reggie Wooten, the guitar player.
So in some ways, I mean, it's not like it's maybe like one step removed from like
totally.
There's this, that's what it is Reflux is one of those bands that like all those except for the drummer. Did the drummer move on to do something? Because he was a really sick drummer.
Well, I mean, I know Dave Lozano was drumming for a little while, actually.
I mean, Ash moved on to be one of the, premier show runners in California.
Dude's living in mansions because of metal. Like, that's like I think he's like the only one that's ever done that. I think. Yeah,
and he booked us on a few things, and it was great working with Ash. And then Tosin obviously went on to Animals as Leaders. Evan he did Animosity. He did fucking. Now he's in Entheos right now. It's like
the Faceless.
That was one of those like little pods of greatness that exploded into
all these different
greatness for everybody.
I was talking to someone who's a guitarist that is pretty well known, but like knows those guys really good, and he was just like, I don't know how they make that kind of money. Like, are they like trust fund kids or something?
Like, yeah, it might be.
It's like that's not.
They also have a lot of these other businesses too, like
nowadays, but like, where did they come? Did they come from?
Well, I mean, I know Misha like kind of comes from money a little bit. At least a lot of the Periphery guys are kind of more from like the Bethesda area in Maryland, which is nicer. So I think at least Misha comes from a little bit more money. I don't know specifically about Tosin, but maybe
that's my excuse with the Periphery, or not the Periphery, the Polyphia guys. I'm like, oh, you guys seem like you guys were rich when you were kids and you got the best lessons ever, and it's like it's my excuse in my head. Like, that's why you're so insanely good.
Yeah, definitely.
But is Polyphia still in this conversation? Because they denounced metal.
They're like the biggest band in that style right now.
Yeah, but they denounced it. Now
they didn't. They made they said something.
You can't do metal if you want to make money. Well,
they didn't announce it. They made like a quirky comment.
Don't we say that too? I mean, come on.
It's exactly what I just want to. I mean, I'm gonna back Casey's statement right now and say, yes,
not mine.
That's the whole point. It's not about the money. It's about the.
Where's an Anthony surge alert, dude?
Am I surging? I'm not surging right now. I'm just piggybacking a point that Casey just made.
So pig vocals.
I can't keep track of all the Polyphia, Periphery, Pomonia
publicity.
On a glass of Periphery was playing with Peripheria, and I can't even say it now.
Is that like air freshener? Like puppeteering.
They both sound like great air fresheners for sure.
No, Polyphia is definitely. I saw them a couple months ago, and I was like, they sold out a humongous place in San Francisco. There was a merch line that was wrapped into the audience. It was probably 70 yards long, and it was the whole fucking time. And there was no metalheads there. There was zero metalheads there. It was all like these kids going like, "Oh, guitar," and so like prog stuff. And it was like, yeah. So I was like, what the fuck? Because we played with Polyphia, and I was like, it was like metal kind of focused, and now it's like they've found another niche, like or niche, whatever you want to call
that's what I'm saying. That's fine. You find your niche, but don't talk shit about your roots. It's not about money.
But
your roots are not about
not
money.
all of us corner purple, dude.
But the thing is, like, I'm always trying to figure out like which one is which, and I'm like, what's the one with the dude with the neck, the tattoo,
That's
the neck.
That's Polyphia.
All right, it's like,
and man, I feel like comments like that a lot of times he might just be trying to stir the pot, just like getting people worked up so that like
obviously
and almost out of context too, like
something
spicy level. That's like spicy level 2.
That's working the algorithm, which is just basically
and out of context
metal
too.
more.
Take a quote in the middle of an interview. He's just all like, "Oh, well, laughing about it." So, but you don't see the laughing about it. It's like, nope, let's cut it here and here. And let's throw it in. It's like, oh, metal is for
all right, dude. Let's figure out how to make Cali Death figure out the algorithm right now, dude.
We should use Cali Death for
metal podcasting sucks, dude.
That's it right there. We'll just cut that up. Post that on your Instagram, and there you go.
So when did Svengahli get started?
That was much more recently. Back on topic. That was much more recently. So like that, I released an EP in 2020 of some music that I sort of had kind of originally written maybe with Exist in mind. It was music that I was kind of just writing on my own just to do anyway. And I, would present it to Max, and if it fit on an album, maybe it would get used. But some of that stuff was music that hadn't gotten used that I liked enough that I didn't want to have it just stay as a guitar profile on my computer.
For sure.
So I released that EP in 2020, and right now I'm maybe like 60 to 70% done with an album, but with working mostly as a sideman, like for Malignancy or Obscura or whatever, my time gets stretched thin all over the place, and it
laughs in drummer.
Well, exactly. It's very kind of similar to that sort of thing where it can be hard to make
cries in rhythm section.
Yeah, because especially as a bass player and a drummer too, it's like, and with the other music that I play back home, it's like most of the time I'm a sideman. Most of the time I'm getting hired for these different gigs and not having to learn this person's music and then this person's music and then that set and then this set, and it goes all over the place. So it can be a lot of juggling, and you can end up not spending as much time on your own stuff as you'd want to. Obviously putting an album together is kind of a monumental feat to begin with, but if you only have very small chunks of time to be able to do it, it can kind of get stretched out pretty far.
So it's not like this is like your high school like dream band that you're finally kind of putting together. It's more like you've kind of just built up a few ideas along the way, and you're like have an outlet for it at this point.
I mean, it definitely wasn't something that I've like been doing for my entire life. It's definitely not been that kind of thing. I mean, I had the desire to kind of do more of, my own thing in, some regard for a little while, but it's only been maybe within the last like 4-5 years or so that feeling has really started kind of, bubbling up more and more.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely a fairly recent thing, because Exist had been pretty much my main band for a long time. Like there was another band I had back in high school called Wisteria that I was the front man for, and was kind of like my first like main band. And then that and
Exist, that's a plant, right? Wisteria?
That is a flower. Yeah. Nice. It was also a street name in the town that I grew up in, and that's where that name came from.
Let's tell everybody what a wisteria is, because you got to tell me again. What color is it?
It's like the color of your sweatshirt. Like I could maybe say that's a wisteria colored sweatshirt.
Oh, what's up, dude? Wisteria.
That's right. Yeah,
Named the Cali Death podcast tonight.
It's like a purplish kind of flower or something.
Okay.
So that was sort of like my first main band, like in high school. But then that sort of fell apart, and Exist just continued to keep on going. And my musical interests also aligned a little bit more with Exist, because like Wisteria had started off sort of as like prog metal, like Death or Orphan Land, because like the drummer was Armenian and tried to incorporate a lot of elements of like traditional Armenian music in the
Nice.
music. So it was kind of more like on that side of the spectrum, like we had like covered a Nile song at one point. Like I had taken this one Armenian, I guess it was kind of like an Armenian folk song, and like I arranged it into like a metal track. So we like were kind of doing stuff like that a little bit. But then I started getting into fusion and jazz and more like prog metal like that. And that's the same stuff that Max was into and we were kind of doing with Exist. So I kind of just gravitated more in that direction anyway.
So have you been writing material for Exist the whole time it's been around?
A little bit. I mean, Max is still definitely the main composer for that. Okay. They're like on So True, So Bound, which was our second record. I wrote one of the tunes. I've written a couple riffs here and there. On the new album, there's one song that Max wrote that was based off of a bunch of these main riffs that I kind of gave to him. So it's still been the vast majority of it is Max the whole time. But, I'll write my own bass parts and add things like that to it.
Sorry, Professor, I just wanted to get this out real quick before we move on. What does Svengahli mean?
So Svengahli was a character from a George de Maurier novel from the 1800s called Trilby. And Svengahli's basically like, he's sort of a musician. He's kind of like an evil character. And basically the whole plot of the story is Trilby is this young girl who, is living in, I think it's France. It's like France or Germany, some European country, and sort of like a bohemian kind of environment. Like she like wants to be a singer, but she's really terrible. And she meets Svengahli, who is basically this like evil magician, musician kind of spirit sort of thing. And he puts her in a spell, and she becomes like an amazing, like world-class opera singer. And so she gets super famous off of that. But it's this really toxic, fucked up relationship that without him, she wouldn't have been famous. And the whole relationship is really bad. Everybody dies in the end. So it's like really, really kind of messed up, but I feel like it's kind of a cool analogy for sometimes like the torture artist kind of thing, and one of the things that we deal with sometimes, just as musicians and artists, or just as human beings, and like kind of zooming in the microscope on ourselves all the time can kind of open up some of these cans of worms that can be hard to deal with,
Love it, dude. I love it.
So I originally found the name from so Gil Evans is this arranger, and I guess he also played a little piano too, but he was mostly known as being a jazz arranger who worked with Miles Davis.
Yeah.
And on one of his albums, I think he has an album called Svengahli. I can't remember if it's the album or if he has a song on it. And I remember finding that back in college, and for some reason that name kind of just stuck with me because it's sort of a unique looking word anyway. And then I forgot about it. Then it popped up a couple years later, and then I looked into it and found the story and everything. And it was like, wow, that's actually pretty cool. And
yeah, it's an album, a live album.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I ended up feeling it was.
We're all Googling it. Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you haven't checked out any of Gil Evans' music, he's was an amazing.
Yeah, Sketches of Spain.
Exactly. Yeah, like those.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's
Miles Davis records are all him.
That's right.
And he had like a impact on like the birth of the cool stuff, like that sort of era of jazz. But so that's where I originally found the name out, and I was like, man, that actually would be a really sick band name, and the whole story behind it's like kind of metal.
Right.
Awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
The logo is fucking super sick. When I was making the flyer, I was like,
that's actually break the fourth wall. That was something that Joseph sent to us, like best logo ever.
Yeah, very sick.
I appreciate that. Yeah, the guy who did the artwork for the last 2 Exist records made that. Like, I had kind of presented some like rough sketches to him of like sort of shapes of like a maybe a logo layout that I kind of liked. And then he just like threw a bunch of ideas at me, and we kind of put together that logo from these things. Like, he's this amazing artist named Sebastian Jerka. He's this German guy that hasn't really done that much in like the bigger metal world. Like, he did an Ahab cover, you know, that like Doom Doom band. That's where I originally had found him from, was just looking through album covers. We're like, whoa, that's really unique and kind of different for a funeral doom band. But yeah, he's an amazing artist, and he was the one that basically put the logo together with me.
I have it on in my headphones right now. Very sick.
What, the Ahab record?
No, the Svengahli record.
Oh, killer. Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah, I had a great time with that record today, dude. I really did.
Yeah, I've been really trying to, in the little pockets of time that I have, write on it. Because, like, for instance, the beginning of next year, I'm basically going to be gone for 4 months. Like, I've got that Malignancy tour in January. Obscura is then doing 70,000 tons right after that. Then Obscura has that North America tour with Flesh God Apocalypse. And so it's this like stuff that's just back to back, and I just like won't be home ever. So it kind of like, I'm glad to be doing that stuff, but it's like, shit, man, you know, I want some time to be able to write, you know? So making time to put that together is, you know, it's kind of a challenge, you know, with all the other stuff I have going on.
For sure.
Dude.
So that Malignancy run, one of the bands I've been talking to mentioned that being an opportunity. So that could be very sick, but I cannot share anything about it yet. But
well, cool.
Wait, one of the bands you playing?
One of the bands I have been talking to about playing
that you would be playing in, maybe.
You're a sneaky.
That sounds enticing.
Dying fetus.
That you would possibly be playing in, maybe not, maybe.
Oh, you guys are playing. Maybe. You guys are ending the tour in Santa Cruz, by the way. Or I think around Santa Cruz. That's
Joseph plays like.
Yeah, it's either
around there.
I think it's either Sacramento or Santa Cruz. I can't remember which one it is.
Well, we will hang out in Santa Cruz. That's where we're at. Or I'm at.
Yeah, I'm glad that tour is finally happening, because basically since I've been in Malignancy, I've been trying to like get Defeated to do a tour, or Malignancy to do a tour with Defeated, because that just
makes sense.
Yeah, totally. It's a killer lineup, and it's, you know, just a great bunch of dudes.
That'll be the Blue Lagoon.
The last show of the I saw this. The last show of the Defeated Malignancy tour ends at the Blue Lagoon. And
you know what's funny is who called me.
I really want to be at that, dude.
Joel Haston. Obviously, I love Joel Haston. He was he called me. He's like, "Do you think?" He always gives me the call whenever it's like a death metal, He's all, "Do you think this show will do good in Santa Cruz?" Because he wants to bring death metal to Santa Cruz. That's his main thing, and he's done a really good job of it. I mean, I think the Obscura thing was him too.
Yep.
But like, he's always like, "Is this gonna? Do you think should I pay for this? Should I do this?" Like for death metal, because he's like more of a metalcore, kind of like a metalcore, deathcore kind of guy, you know. But he likes death metal, like he's a fan of it, and like he doesn't know what will do good in certain places, so he's like. And I'm like, I'm all bring it. I was like, and I was like, there's been certain times where it just blows up, like in Santa Cruz, where it's in like, it was Ghoul played here a couple weeks ago, or I mean, it was Halloween. Never mind.
Ghoul and Halloween. We had a guy recently on the show that sold out. The guy that's in that band.
Yeah, he's probably in the chat, but
is he?
He's the drum tech, maybe plays drums for the band. I don't know.
I'm not. I'm not.
Oh, dude, you're one-eyed. You just fucking pirate-eyed.
I'm one-eyed because I can't see you guys from the beginning of this thing.
You can put your glasses back on.
Told me, okay,
put your glasses back on.
Well, if he puts his glasses back on, then we won't know if he's awake.
You guys,
that's why you wore him, dude. He's trying to hide. He wants the reflection hiding. Look at that.
That's why he brought those.
That's why he brought them. Dude.
I'm like, why the fuck are you bringing these glasses?
Gabe Sieber like shamed him into
108 episodes. All of a sudden, they got glasses. What the fuck?
I know, dude. Because
that's a good move, though. I can't tell, dude.
So the Malignancy stuff,
like the open eyes. He just
what's it like playing the Malignancy set? Because that shit is just out of control.
It's
out of control.
It's a different experience than a lot of other death metal. Like I almost equate playing with Malignancy like you're playing free jazz in a way, because of the way that that music deals with time. That it's not this very like computerized, metronomic, always perfectly on the grid kind of thing. It's this stuff that really breathes, and even like within one riff, the tempo might go like
yeah.
Really like
breathing.
organic breathing kind of
So
pushing
good,
sort of thing. So you always have to be on your toes. You know, like I can't, like zone out and like think about doing my laundry later that night playing that music. Like you have to be right on it. Obviously we're not playing to a click track, or any backing tracks. So, you don't have the safety net of that. So it's like I'm really having to listen to everything that Ronnie does or what Alex has been doing. I mean, Mike Heller is going to be doing this upcoming.
Oh, fuck. Are you serious?
So that'll be fucking sick.
Shit.
I've never played with Mike before. I've been in Malignancy for 2 years, and I just met him earlier this year, and I've never played with him. So
that's out of control.
That'll be it's like almost a completely different band. It's kind of interesting that I played a gig with Malignancy a couple weeks ago, and Angel from Demolition Hammer played drums on it.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yes, and it was great playing with him. Again, it's kind of a different thing. So it's this very like you see people's personalities more in a situation like that. Like Angel, Alex, and Mike, it's going to be almost like an entirely different band. Like a different experience in a way, because the way that those guys like sort of play some of the riffs, like Mike might like blast, like hyper blast through something like super, super fast, whereas Alex might like kind of lay back and do something a little bit different with it. So it's like this really elastic and organic experience that doesn't really happen in a lot of death metal. So it's I really like it a lot, and it
totally.
Like I said, it kind of, there's a lot of it that I sort of can relate to my experience with jazz and improvised music, because a lot of like the sensibilities that I had to use for like following people or really like paying attention and listening deeply into how somebody's like playing time. I'm doing that in Malignancy, so it's pretty cool. It can be really chaotic. It's like getting thrown out of an airplane, you know? Like, and with the way that those sets flow, it's kind of funny because Danny is hilarious on stage.
Yeah.
So like it's like half comedy show, half death metal. And so like Danny will be just like, shooting the shit, saying stupid stuff on stage. And then it'll immediately just cut to Alex going, bah, 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 and it's just like getting thrown out of an airplane for 2 minutes. Then it stops. And then it's like a comedy show again. And then bah, 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 right back to it. So it's this really hilarious like flow of energy the whole time too. So it's fun. I like playing with them a lot, and I'm glad that we're finally doing some kind of tour, because we've done some festivals and some weekend runs, but I don't think they really have the time to really be touring that much, because Ronnie works for the sewer department in New York, and I think Danny's maybe doing like HVAC now. So it's like they have more like normal jobs that I don't think they can kind of get away from quite as much anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
Mike's been Mike obviously, Fear Factory and other big gigs. What was the latest? Wasn't he playing like for some like big German thrash band recently or something?
Playing in Raven recently.
Raven, yeah, dude. That sounds like a fun gig.
What style is Raven?
It's kind of like he was saying, it's sort of like thrash, kind of like I don't know if I'd like call it power metal, but it's like
80s metal kind of.
Yeah, exactly.
I expect it to be power metal,
heavy metal or whatever.
Oh, heavy metal.
I guess that's probably a better way.
Like Anvil.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
sure.
It's definitely not death metal.
All those like 5-letter bands, Raven,
Overkill-ish.
Anvil,
Yeah, exactly. All they accept is not 5 letters.
Yeah.
But
how do you go from like going from a band that's like to a meter to a to a click to playing to a free forming breathing band? Like, how don't you have to like practice with the band that's not on a click and free way more than you would with one with the click?
I mean, it really depends. So for me, like most of my gigs back home, I don't rehearse for them ever. Like I like do a lot of wedding gigs where we don't rehearse, or like obviously any of the jazz gigs that I do, I don't rehearse for those either, because like you can't really rehearse for that sort of thing in the same sort of way. So I've been used to basically just jumping in. Mike Heller loves peanut butter ice cream.
From
It's a good random fact. I'll remember that. If I ever piss him off one day, I'll just, hand him a carton of peanut butter ice cream, and hopefully that'll, make everything right with the world. But so most of my gigs, I'm kind of used to just having to jump in with random people I've never played with before or never rehearsed with.
Yes. Okay. So you're used to that. Kind of like awkward improv. Yeah.
I'm definitely used to that. And like, that's one thing that being exposed to jazz and having the experience that I've had with like being a gigging jazz musician has really helped out, or like when I played with Defeated Sanity, like if I hadn't had the experience with jazz that I did, that gig would have been impossible.
Yeah. So you walk into a situation like that of a bunch of musicians, you haven't rehearsed or anything. Are you kind of like, fuck yeah, let's do this? Or are you like, what are we going to do? Like, what's the mindset going into it?
That's like one of my favorite things ever, like having that like danger in the music.
Okay. So you're stoked.
It's I mean, sure, there's like some nerves in it. Like for instance, playing with Mike, like I don't totally know what to expect. And I know he likes to play really fast. So there's going to be some stuff where I'm like, dude, I hope I can hang with that.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like I like the danger in that. Like some of my like most fun gigs that I've ever had playing, like the band feels like it's about to fall apart. Like if it's like this very like perfectly choreographed thing, like walking on a tightrope, that if one of us slips up at all, the train is just going to completely explode and come off the tracks. Like that sense of danger is kind of really fun. And
do you find like do you smile in that environment? Like if you're about to fall off the tracks, like it's fun, like it's a fun thing?
I mean, obviously it's a situational thing, because if somebody's like very clearly like, okay, this person didn't really practice and it's not like an artistic reason why this is happening.
Okay. Yeah.
Then it's not good. I don't like playing with like shitty musicians that like can't hold their things together. That's not totally what I mean. It's more like an energy thing. It's like, have you ever seen those videos of that guy who like broke one of the land speed records for biking down the side of a mountain, like biking down the side of like a volcano? It's like he's wearing one of those like crazy like painted helmets.
Alien.
It feels like that. Like when I'm playing that.
You're like shit.
It's like I'm going like 200 miles an hour.
It wasn't 200. What was the actual miles?
200 miles an hour.
I think it might have been.
It was like 180 or something. Like it was
180. A dude was on a mountain bike going down,
and it exploded when he was driving. So like the wheel just fell off, and he flew like.
Well, we could probably read the story through Anthony's glasses right now if we look closer.
Exactly. I can't remember what the name of the guy is, but I'm sure you could find it online. Like watching the video of him fall off his bike like that, dude.
I need to see, guys. Sorry.
It's so like it makes your balls like fall off. It's just
God.
And like,
so you're talking about like you're on this thing. You're like fuck yeah. You just don't want to hit that one rock where the one guy doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah,
that's totally, like a rock. Yeah, exactly.
So it's like obviously you want to be playing with people that are good, but it's like this real sense of danger of like this could completely come off the rails at any point, and we're all like organically making this happen.
But good also could be like shredding, but another form of good is like recovering. Like recovering from a weird that's another form of good.
That happens with that sometimes because of how like loose some of that music is. Like there are certain rhythms I don't know how to write down on paper. I know music theory enough that I can write down kind of just about anything like rhythmically correctly. But there are certain things with Malignancy where it's like I don't know actually how to write that because it's like gestural, it's like, try writing down the rhythm of my speech right now. Like
played freely. Or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Or like there's this jazz drummer named Paul Motion that a lot of his tunes, the lead sheets that he'd write out had like loose rhythms on it where it was like, okay, kind of shaped like what the phrase would be like, but you would have to hear him play it or somebody else play it to really understand it. It's like just like it's like this gestural, like spoken, organic kind of thing that you can't really write down in any kind of like intellectualized kind of way, you know?
Yeah. It's just too free for it. Yeah.
Yeah, or it's just like again, like the Bill Evans analogy I used earlier about the guy that transcribed the shit he played. It's like, well, it's kind of not like what he's really thinking about. So what's the point of trying in a way?
Yeah.
So that's been one of the most fun things about playing in Malignancy is it just feels like this very like open, like kind of rock and roll sort of thing where like, you know, we'll just get up on stage and just like fucking let it rip. You know, it's not this like very like controlled environment at all.
And then when there's like a decision made that where like a speed is changed or a tempo is changed or like something changes a little bit, but everyone locks onto it, you guys are like, fuck yes.
Yeah,
like,
we have to listen to each other.
Yeah.
Because that'll happen. Sometimes maybe Alex will come out of a fill to like earlier than he did before, or maybe like Ronnie and me will start splitting up, and then we have to like catch each other again.
Yeah.
You know? So that happens every gig. There's something like that happens that in some ways you could look at that as maybe being sloppiness, but with how loose and gestural the music is, that's just gonna happen. You know?
Yeah. Definitely.
You know, so it's just kind of the sort of the nature of the beast with that. Or if you listen to like jazz and improvising music, there's a lot of stuff that isn't like perfect, like Necrophagist or like Tech Death or like that, but it doesn't sound bad. You know, it's just more loose and kind of
same wavelength, kind of looseness. Yeah.
It's when you get that mentality of, okay, I'm going to listen to people who are trying to create something in the moment. I give, you know, a little bit of leeway to those musicians. What was at the bottom? I didn't even see it. You fuckers, I'm making a good point. I didn't say it any slurred way. It's just I'm not surgeon at all.
I just like it when they do it like that, man. And
Flatline is my band from high school. Yes.
Casey's going through all of them.
Yeah. No, but I mean it really is but to be the listener in the audience for something like that, you do have to actually be ready for something like that, something where the artists are, you know, exploring and finding themselves in the same moment.
It's not a perfect thing. It's not like
here's something.
And like, for instance, that Summer Slaughter that you were talking about, that Decapitated was on. I think Necrophagist was also on that one.
No, that was the one. That was the year before we did that one
was the year
too.
Before. Okay,
yeah.
I saw Necrophagist on that one, and they were boring as fuck. Like there was no energy in it. Like they played absolutely perfectly, and
they were statues.
Good. But it was just like, and it's not even just like a visual kind of thing. It's this like. It's an emotional kind of like connection sort of thing. Like, you know, like when you talk to somebody that like either just like feels really distant, or you feel like you're like, they're not really like paying attention to what you're saying, or somebody that just feels like they're kind of checked out or like faking it or whatever. It just felt like that to me, where like
another show, like they're just doing another show. It wasn't like
yeah, exactly. So it was like, technically it was perfect. Like they sounded really good. But I just like wanted to go to sleep. It's like, well, dude, why did I even come to the show? I just put the album on at my house and just drink a beer on my couch. Like it's not a different thing at all, you know?
And it is it's much more exciting to see, and you don't see it too much in the metal community, but a band that you go out that wants to expand what you've already heard. They want to explode the song or the songs that you already know so well and make them bigger and better for the live.
Just do something different with it. Like I saw Necrophagist once. I think it was in 2007. Marco Miniman.
Yeah.
Dude, that was my favorite time seeing Necrophagist, and the stuff that Marco did with those tunes. It elevated them. It made them so much better.
Every day it was different too. Was what I heard from them. It was like he just was freestyling whatever. He knew the beats, he knew the rhythms, but like he'd be like, I'm gonna do this beat over it.
Yeah, which is that's the shit to me. That's like what I want to strive for. But apparently Muhammad hated it.
Well, there was times where it didn't make sense. I was on mushrooms with Dan Kenny, but There was times where it didn't really make sense because I mean, also too, it's like it comes down to the they bought the tickets to watch the songs, and now the songs are like instead of a blast beat, it's all he's like doing like weird like it's not building up to the part that we knew. It's like becoming a new part. Which the fact that he can do that is banana town. Like I have no idea how he does that, but the fucking it's not like necrophagus. So it's like people want their Slayer, they want their thing that they've listened to, and that's why they're there. And I could see why, because I saw Muhammad looking back, I'm like, the fuck is going on back there? But it's like you have one of the best drummers back there in the world, but he's not a death metal drummer. You like hired. I know he's from Germany. I get it. But like you're hiring one of the best drummers, like prog drummers in the world, doesn't care about death metal at all. He's just a musician. Like he's like one of the top musicians in the. I just saw the Aristocrats we talked about last podcast, and I was like, fucking, like wanted to walk out of there. Like I was it's so good. Yeah, just like, fuck.
It is pretty
guys,
amazing though that Marco had the death metal chops to be able to hang with that.
Oh,
stuff.
I know. I had no idea he could do that.
Because like it's one thing to just have a musical understanding of different time signatures and whatever, but like you don't just wake up one day and like be able to blast it like 280, or like have
what we've talked about all night is not having the understanding, just going and doing it, dude.
Yeah,
you just go and do it before you have the understanding,
but like the physicality of like being able to just pull that off. I don't know how much time he had to shed that before or how much like prior.
Well, yeah, that's also like just your 10,000 hours type deal.
That's so no, but he didn't have the 10. That's the weird thing about him is that he like it's Marco Miniman, so obviously like he's like, oh, let's just hire Marco Miniman to do because it was like a last second thing. I don't remember what the nature of it was, but it definitely Hannes. It was between the Hannes and Romain kind of like switch off. And I think it was like the switch off between that, and he's like, "Oh, we'll just fucking like knowing because we toured with Necrophagus, like knowing Muhammad's probably like, we'll fucking get Marco Miniman, fuck it, like we'll get the best drummer in the world, fuck you, he's from Germany." But yeah, no, it was I mean, touring with them and watching them every night was like they were such on a different level. Like it was, but also too, I did feel kind of like a stagnant kind of like force from them. It wasn't like they weren't. It was, anyways. I don't want to give too much information, but there was a force in the band that was kind of a lot of people weren't happy with, and it was you could feel it in the band a little bit.
Yeah, Christian has told me some stories.
Like that. Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, our buddy was drum tech for them at the time, and he did drum tech for Suffo as well. But he was like, "Oh my force dude,
rhyme with Shimshamed."
Sure. I don't know what you're talking about.
And he was, by the way, he was like super nice to us. Like we were getting praise from him. He was walking on stage while we're doing sound check and just filming us and being like, "Oh, it's fucking awesome." Like he was, and I was like, "What the fuck? This is like my dream come true." This is like Muhammad like wanting to film us. Like it was in Decrepit at the time. They was like, "Oh, dude, you guys are fucking sick," and I'm like, "Dude, what the fuck? Like you're the reason why I'm here. Like this is the weirdest thing ever." And yeah, other people were like, "Yeah, it's because like he's known as an asshole now, so he has to be nice to everyone."
I probably saw you guys on. So that was the Marco tour that you were with Decrepit.
Oh no! I just saw that live. Okay, it was it was a Summer Slaughter with Necrophagus and Dying Fetus and Suffocation.
Yeah, so then I definitely saw that tour wherever that was. If it was Jax or Sonar, I don't remember. But
shout out Jax again, dude.
Oh, dude, I definitely miss Jax in a way. Like I said, it was kind of a shithole, but it was like the first venue that I played a legit show at. Like
I have.
Well, this is the thing. When you're on tour and there's these little beacons of light that happen on tour, where there's a good crowd that wants to buy merch, and then you're like, oh shit, we can totally do this further into the tour. You're almost starving. And then you show up to a place like Jack's and they'll spend $700 in merch, and you're like, wait, oh it's a reminder. Yes, we got to keep going.
Jackson's always been like one of those places that has hit us good. Like there's always been this energy at Jack's that was like excitement and like I have so many memories. I've probably played there 5 or 6 times, but like so many memories of just like good crowds, people stoked, people like amping up, like, oh shit, they're coming, like, and like the crowd being like so loud, like, oh shit, I didn't know Virginia threw it down so hard. I remember one time someone after the show or I forget, but I remember the White House is like right there.
It's pretty close. I mean, it's not like right there, but it's definitely not.
It's like 30 minutes away. It's like right from.
I mean, geographically, it's not very far, but with how like that area can be with traffic, it can take you anywhere from 30 minutes to like 3 hours.
Yeah, what's up with those? No, we're going in the super weeds, literally, but those roads, those back roads, you know, like in Virginia, where you're just all of a sudden on these roads where it's like these old houses where it looks like Gettysburg happened the whole time. Like it's it's like these 2-lane roads. There's a one-way direction, and there's like these houses that look like they're from the fucking 1700s, and it's just nothing but that, and just like, you know, the amber waves of grain or whatever, like just everywhere. This purple mountains majesty everywhere. But
there are definitely a lot of rural areas outside of those cities. I mean, you know, most of Maryland and Northern Virginia is pretty developed, but like I'll play a lot of wedding gigs out like in wineries in Virginia, and driving to a lot of those, it's the same thing where it's like, dude, this is in the middle of fucking nowhere. Like this is you know, the nation's capital is only like, you know, maybe 20 miles, 30 miles away from here. Like this is pretty wild.
Yeah, it's a trip.
What do you guys playing on those gigs? Like Blue Note jazz standards? Or...
Oh no, on the wedding gigs we're playing like fucking top 40 shit like Taylor Swift and Lizzo, you know, garbage like that.
And you're getting
the Hammer Dad's like ZZ Top.
You let your hair down for those?
Oh, I'm headbanging, helicoptering the whole time. You know, hands on my cabinet, just get really drunk and play Shake It Off. You know, but I wish I could do that. But I mean, those gigs are super easy, and at this point, like I've been doing them for like over 10 years at this point. So I really have to.
You gotta have that steady cash flow, dude.
And dude, I mean, they paid really well, so it definitely. And also, the company I work for is really cool with subbing gigs out. You know, because there are some wedding bands that are either they have like an exclusivity contract that like if you have a gig with that band on a certain day, you can't take anything else, or they could like sue you or whatever. Wow. So some bands are like that. Some bands are just kind of like weird about subbing out, where like it's more of like a set unit. Whereas the company I work for is more of a pool of musicians in a certain area that for instance, I have a gig with them tomorrow that on that day, there are going to probably be at least maybe 4 or 5 other bands with the same name out just under the same company, but it's just different musicians. Wow. And talking about, you know, going into a situation cold with, you know, people you haven't played with before, the bands are never the same. You know, I've played with, I think everybody who's on the gig tomorrow, but that band that is going to play has never played as a band before. So it's this kind of thing where you're just expected to know the tunes like they are on the record, and you show up and play it, you know. So
have they ever called out a song where you just don't you know the song, you've heard it on the radio 1 million times, but and you know you have your instrument so locked in that you're like, oh, I know what they're doing, like right away. Like before you have to play it, you're like, all right, well, I know the rhythm, I know like what are the notes.
I'm gonna say no right now.
It really depends. Most of the time, no. But sometimes it like certain pop songs are easy enough where it's like, okay, I'll hear my way through that, you know?
Yeah.
And like that's where like ear training really comes in handy, you know, like with the like jazz experience, or like I have to transcribe all of these tunes, you know, like I'll make these charts, like I'm transcribing some Christmas music for tomorrow, fucking exciting. But you know, I'll write, you know, a bunch of charts like that out. And so at this point, I've like transcribed. I think last time I looked, it was like 965 of like pop tunes for these gigs that I've done. So it's like, even though harmonically it's not really complicated, you know, it's not like transcribing a Necrophages song. It is good work with just basic ear training. You know, like I can listen to a song and just know what the chord progression is without even picking up my bass, because most pop music kind of functions in a similar way where it's like what you're talking about, where if somebody like, played through a song to me one time, I might be able to pick it up, or as it's happening, I might be able to guess that, okay, it's going to go to that chord right now. Or
I want you to learn Donnie Holloway's This Christmas for me, and I want to hear you
pay money.
No.
He's a musician.
I'm playing Christina Aguilera's version of that song tomorrow.
Okay.
Typically, that Donnie has to
tell me, it's not easy, right?
Well, the Christina Aguilera one's not, because the bass part's, you know, kind of funky and whatever in it.
That's my favorite Christmas song.
But literally,
I've
I'm
even heard
playing
it
that tomorrow. So that's really funny. But yeah, so it's kind of nice with that company because I can sub gigs out no problem. Like if I get a tour that comes out, I'm just like, okay, see you guys, because they have like 20 other bass players that they could fill that slot with. You know,
damn, what a trip.
So it's really it gives me a lot of freedom in a way, you know. And you know, there are some wedding bands or some event bands in the area that like the gigs might pay. Does
that mean I need to take them off, dude? Should I take them back off?
No, I think it's the wood paneling behind you.
Yeah.
I can't change that.
Nothing to do with the hat, though.
Yeah.
No, I need a green screen like Ian McDonald, dude.
Yeah, I saw the clip of that. That was pretty funny.
So what is your favorite song in the that always gets played at the wedding? What's the one where you're like, all right, this is why I do it, because it's fun to play this song?
This is why I do this.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any song that gives me that feeling, but
okay.
I mean, there are some that have more active bass parts in it. Like there's a lot of these pop tunes that are kind of doing this like retro, like Motown, like old school funk kind of whatever.
I noticed the Lizzo stuff does that. Yeah.
Like I have to play that song About Damn Time tomorrow.
Yeah, that song, I've taught that on bass. It's fun.
I mean, there's definitely like some cool stuff happening in it, or like some of the Bruno Mars tunes can kind of be like that. So some of those that are more like band oriented songs. There's a lot of pop music now that like doesn't really make sense to play as a band because of how it's produced in a studio and how basically, yeah, definitely the paneling. That you know, it's like a drum machine or like synth bass or like there really isn't even much of a band, so it kind of just it doesn't make sense to have a band play it. Whereas like we'll do a lot of Motown stuff, which obviously that was played by an actor.
You're hitting me in the feels right there.
Oh man,
yeah.
So and it's cool to see that a lot of you know, people closer to our age and even younger still listen to some of that stuff. You know, or still like hearing it, because some people I wouldn't be surprised if they're like, ew, Stevie Wonder, like who is that? You know?
So as people, because these are wedding gigs, so like, you know, these are people getting married, so they're probably like starting to get closer to the age of like you and me, like, you know, like early 30s. So are you starting to see like the tastes of the bride and groom or whoever the organizers are like start to inform or like start to change over time as you know, generational change in that?
A little bit. I mean, like I've only been doing it for about 10 years, so I, you know, you see some changes happening in there, but I, you know, definitely am noticing a lot of like 90s music happening.
That's what I was gonna ask about specifically.
Like I do a lot of pop punk, you know, like we'll do like some Blink-182 songs, or
they probably want to hear Fall Out Boy and shit.
Sugar We're Going Down, I have to play that all the time.
Yeah.
Or like some like Backstreet Boys and NSYNC and like
any Offspring smash?
No, I haven't had to do that.
You're done, bro. You got shot down.
Jesus, I'm way too old.
Yeah, I have had to do All Star, that Smash Mouth.
Yeah, but what is weird about that thing that happens, and it happens over and over again, which is we're in 2022, about to be in 2023, but the 90s are starting to come back again.
Oh yeah,
you know.
Well, I think it's like, you know, it's the nostalgia thing for like people our age that were.
It is.
It's an age thing. Yeah.
It's an age thing that, you know, like a lot of our parents are just like, oh yeah, you know, music from the 60s and 70s was the best. But it's like, well, you're just in the position that we were in, and we're just saying the same thing about the music that we were listening to when we were younger.
But we have such a leg up on them, though. We have such a leg up though, because we get all that classic shit, and then we get the new shit. We get the '90s shit, and we get the '80s shit. We get the new shit. We get like back then they had like the radio.
Position.
They had the radio going like, okay,
we have a much wider exposure to all of this different stuff. Where sure, you know, there was other music obviously still happening then, but it was much harder to find.
For them, it's like Jimi Hendrix.
I got a thought.
Casey's got a thought.
All right. So my thought, I know, spread the water
full screen.
Well, my experience, I'm the oldest one on the podcast for sure.
Okay.
You know, as you guys know, I'm pretty old. So like, I remember like back in those days, like kind of like envying people that were older than me, like musically, like not like super older, but like, you know, people that you grew up like in Jimmy, like I'd meet people that, I saw Jimi Hendrix, you know, in college and, you know, this and that.
Yeah.
It was like, for me, it was like, oh dude, you grew up with rock and roll or the 70s, or you grew up with like Sabbath and Zeppelin, or you grew up in the 80s with Ozzy and, you know, Van Halen and like whatever, Maiden. You saw Iron Maiden in 1981. Like what the fuck? I wasn't even born yet, you know. But it was like, and I again, I know it's cheesy, but it's like our generation, and then it was like everything after that we're just like, no, it's not as good. It's like shitty, but the thing is, like, I don't know, like it. I mean, like music changed drastically with the internet. And then like for that whole thing, so like I don't know.
Well, and also just
music full screen still. This is driving me nuts. but I'm saying, but like I don't know, you know, like
making changed a lot too. Because back when a lot of those early bands, it was this in person, much more organic thing where you didn't really have the same obvious like studio tools that you have now, and it was much less accessible, so maybe that sort of influenced the nature of some of that music.
I guess what I'm trying to say is that I sorry to interrupt again, but I think the thing is like kids these days, like they like look back on our music as like kind of shitty or something. Like they're like, oh, like Nirvana and this and that. It's like, but what I'm trying to say is like at the time when I was their age, I looked back on 10, 20, whatever, 30 years before me as like, dude, you guys grew up in like a sick time, like
yeah.
You know what I mean? Do you guys remember that? So
dude, my dad saw John Coltrane in person.
Or even
we have that like dad thing in us where we're like fuck yeah, the shit my dad showed me was awesome, and also my new shit's awesome. That you know, my generation's awesome,
but then
there's the new
generations are like your shit's.
Well, that's like
no, they don't even say that shit's whack now. They're totally saying, hey, we love your shit, because every fucking song you hear on the radio is a sample of an older song that we listen to, which is also a sample of an older song.
But I mean, there's a lineage. There's a lineage though. Like when you're listening to like Nirvana, I'm being super old, dude. I'm so old, but listening to like Nirvana or something, you can like hear that lineage going back to the like 70s post-punk, like or whatever, like post-rock, whatever, stupid. Whatever, Sabbath, you can even hear that shit in Nirvana. I don't know, but I'm just saying, like someone who's like listening to like Fall Out Boy, like Ballad of or like, you know, whatever. It's not Fall Out Boy, but whatever, like some kind of band like that. And it's like there's no lineage to that. Like there is, but not. I mean, I guess I'm totally wrong, but I'm just saying like, but that's like a separate thing, because like I think it's because of the technology. And also the internet and like other things. I think it's because of like the digital stuff too. But the technology, I think, is part of it, and all of this. But it's like they're used to music as this like super processed thing with like perfect everything, and then like there's no like connection between like, you know, Bob Dylan and like
there's no
vocals and like the coolness.
My thing is
like, you know, between that and Fall Out Boy. It's
my
like,
thing real quick. I just want to say,
you know,
is that there has to be a connection, because we're having a resurgence of the 90s right now. There has to be a connection.
I know there has to be a connection, but at the same time, what Casey's getting at is that like nowadays a lot of the music is now there's so much like, you know, social media, whatever, like people are like, oh, this is cool now, and it's like rather than someone finding that out on their own and listening to it and be like, oh, this song connects with me, it's like, oh, Frank Sanders says this is cool now, so I should now listen to this song because it's popular.
Frank's a good friend of mine. I like him.
I don't know. But like it used to be like back, like you listen to it like during a time of like, oh, going through a tough time in life where you're like, ooh, this song is the song, you know?
Yeah,
now
but
it's
they
like,
have that too. But why is the '90s still the thing?
Well, I think people still have a connection to like whatever current music they're listening to. So like if you're in this modern age and say you're a teenage girl now and you listen to whatever that or whatever 10 years ago, Fall Out Boy, whatever was the current thing, you know, like you're going to connect to that the same way, you know. But I feel like with the change of the music with the internet, like, or the technology, like with certain things, like it just took this like, or like all the stuff that we were like laughing about or whatever, like the Backstreet Boys stuff and all that, which has always been going on, but like musically, like
You mean the stuff
the
that Alex
sound
Wilson
that
plays on his off days?
That I
Yeah.
love to play.
yeah, I mean, dude, I had to do that shit too. I played many a pop tunes, you know, like for, you know, pit band shit. Like I understand too.
We listen to metal uphill both ways. In college, I actually did
I love
have
it,
to walk uphill in both directions.
So good.
Through this valley to get like from my dorm to the music
Hell
building.
yeah.
So technically, I actually did have to walk uphill in both directions.
Yeah. My thoughts on this. So I just got back from teaching at School of Rock, where I taught Nirvana like most of the day. Like it's like go to.
Actual today.
I think we mostly remember the good music from the past, and there was probably a ton of bullshit in the 60s that we don't remember, a ton of bullshit in the 70s and whatever.
Like Lollipop song and shit.
Yeah,
it wasn't like played constantly. You could like, it was like, it was picked, but yeah, anyways.
And then the other thing is, it's weird, like that Fall Out Boy, Sugar We're Going Down song, that song. I heard that play at a bar, and it just fucking, it went off, and I was like, dude, this is sick. Like these melodies are rad. Like this is a good song.
Well,
but
for us, we're thinking about the song, but not the vibe. Like they're thinking about the vibe. It's like, oh, it's the thing about the crowd of people around me, not the song. You know, it's like it's like an upbeat vibe to the bar that it brings.
It's interesting, the question about like whether there's like a same kind of lineage to that kind of like commercial pop rock and kind of like pop punk metal stuff. Like that's an interesting question. Like definitely hear the lineage of like Nirvana coming out of, you know, all the stuff you're just mentioning. And it's funny, like, is there something different about like, you know, the Blink-182 and the skate punk scene? Like obviously they were influenced by like underground, like hardcore punk a little bit, but it totally got filtered out at a certain point. And it's like, does that filtering and commercialization also mean you're like kind of losing the legacy? That's like an interesting question. So
you can speak it out way better than I can.
Yeah, no, Joseph, I think
I'm sober.
No, Joseph, you're making a super good point. Like that's a really good point. And there were bands back in like our days growing up in the high school. And I was like, oh, like Good Charlotte and all that, and or Blink, even for me. Like even though it's my hometown and all that, and Tom DeLonge came to our high school at the time. But like, and he was at Rock Academy one day. I walked out of the drum and he's standing right there. It's super funny, but it's like a local thing, you know, San Diego. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I try to like, it's like, are we just old or are
Machine Gun Kelly is the fucking
but it's like
the zenith, dude.
It's like, no,
he might have not invented metal, but he perfected it.
Things get sealed off before we know it, you know, and then you become that old guy of like,
I know.
Well, when I was a kid, or
well, it's just like we're these old anchors. We have these anchors that are just stuck in certain parts of time. They're like, no, this is my time. This is the anchor, the human anchor.
Just shows that it happens at a certain time
everyone
in most people's lives, where it's in their early 20s to or late teens, early 20s, where they have this moment in time where everything's like is set in stone. They don't even realize it.
Yeah, most people don't change the things, especially with the styles of music that they like
mid-30s,
from like the age of 18, whatever you liked around that point.
Oh, that style,
right?
Most of the time it doesn't change.
That is definitely the reference point, at least.
And then once you hit 30, your brain starts solidifying.
Then you got to make decisions. You can still make the decisions of, am I going to expand further into other realms of
Do you think there's going to be parents one day that show the kids like, okay, this is my music back in the day, and they just play Island Boy?
Like, like, sick, dude. Have you guys seen the movie This Is 40 with Paul Rudd and shit? Like with all this Alice in Chains shit, there's that one scene where he's like, like, this is real music, like trying to show his kids, his daughters, and he's like he puts on I think it's the Rooster, Alice in Chains, and he's like dancing like. It's like, it's just all like they're like, this is depressing, this is terrible, like this shit,
and that's what it really is, dude. Being a father of 3, and I already have one that's getting ready to be a teenager in a year or 2. I feel that, like, I know that I'm an old guy now. I'm an old guy now. Like, I try and be like, pay attention to this, dude.
This is the real shit.
Understand this. And he's just like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? The only here I will say, here's my one reigning moment as a metal dad where I have instilled something in him, which is the band Rhapsody. The band Rhapsody.
Random.
My oldest, Trevor, he loves the one album that the Dragon cover album, that, which is probably, they have more than one.
Oh yeah, the unique
narrows it down really good.
The one that we've listened to on the Bloodletting, and
that narrows it down.
He calls it battle music, dude. He's like, put on the battle music, dude. And I'm like, all right, let's battle, dude.
Does he play a lot of video games? Like, does he relate it to video
Oh
games?
hell yeah, dude. He's all about Fortnite and shit.
Well, dude, and I'm sure like a lot of us are kind of in the same position, but like video games really helped like disseminate a lot of music. Like some of
Tony Hawk.
Exactly, that's the one,
Yeah.
The first time I ever heard growling ever was In Flames.
Yeah,
I think it was maybe Tony Hawk. It was 3 or 4, but it was the song Embody the Invisible.
Yeah, that fucking guitar tone on that shit.
That was the first time I ever heard it. And like, at first I didn't really like it because I was like, what is he doing? It sounds weird. But then quickly pulled my head out of my ass and realized, like, oh no, that's fucking sick. But like, Primus, Less Than Jake, a lot of like, punk and other, like, I don't know if Rancid was on there at all, but like a bunch of stuff like that. I found out about through that game.
And the hip hop. There was a ton of sick fucking hip hop, like Jurassic 5 and
Voltron was on that.
Jurassic 5, shout out Good Life Cafe.
Here's a question.
None of y'all know nothing about that.
Here he goes.
What, me?
Okay. No, I was going to stop right there because I knew the professor had something to say.
So we're doing a grunge show at the School of Rock, and I remember just like talking to the show director. He mentioned, he's like, yeah, I don't think there's any grunge bands that use double bass drumming. And I've been thinking about it ever since. Can you think of a grunge band that played like a double bass kit or like, used double bass in a song ever? And I was starting to realize, like, dude, no, like 80s had like, heavy metal with the big double bass kits. And then suddenly in the 90s, I can't think of a single like archetypal grunge band or that would use double bass.
If you're like
MTV Unplugged, dude. That's the whole interesting. That's what fucking.
Yeah, there was Nirvana had double bass on the Unplugged thing. You didn't hear that?
Yeah. Well, it's like double.
No, Dave Grohl actually had a double cajon.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
if you're thinking about like the traditional grunge bands, I can't think of any. Maybe there were.
If anyone can point me
bands.
Well,
maybe you had it, but I don't know.
Your closest guess probably like Soundgarden, but they didn't do that. I mean, like Alice in Chains, it's all like single kick doubles, God, like the tom.
It's
my mic is falling. I gotta tighten this thing. It's
There's
terrible.
never like a duka kind of.
Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, there's definitely like a Judas Priest, like rock double bass.
That was kind of what they were pulling away from. I feel like,
they were like they were pulling away from the Motley Crue, all the
reaction to the hair metal.
But you guys have seen the pictures of the old Alice in Chains, like with the the Mother Love Bone days and stuff, and all the glam, like the crossover. But dude, I'm pretty sure that the first grunge hit of like the real first grunge hit song was "Man in the Box." I think was before Nevermind came out. I'm pretty sure that
really
Man in the Box was, that was like, because Facelift, dude, is like, because Alice in Chains was like old, like they were like in that scene with Mother Love Bone and
Are you
shit.
talking about like a picture like that?
Yeah, dude, for sure.
Yeah.
Lane
or like Pantera, what they used to look like.
Oh yeah, Pantera.
Oh, Pantera, yeah. Well, that was
power metal dudes.
It's different.
So funny, man. Seeing especially Phil Anselmo and like those guys looking like that, it's so goofy.
Anytime he's ever said anything
I will
wrong,
say,
just
power metal.
like,
if you go back to
so
the
good.
power metal album, you'll actually see that it really is the bridge from that old Pantera sound into Cowboys from Hell. There's a few songs on there where you're really like, oh shit, dude, they're finding that Cowboys from Hell style.
All right, so we're at 3 hours and 15 minutes.
We're just starting to talk about grunge.
We're at 3 hours and 15 minutes.
It's only 1:15 for me, man. I've got another good 3 or 4 hours in me. I'm great.
Yeah, dude. I don't know. Like as far as the crossover styles in the '90s of bands that did double bass, I mean, industrial kind of had like like Ministry and Nine Inch Nails a little bit had some of that like like double bass.
Okay.
Of course, Prince had double bass, like, but it's not like metal. But of course, obviously metal, like there was thrash and obviously, Judas Priest, and bands that was doing it in the 70s and shit.
Yeah.
But like grunge, yeah, dude, it's just not like grunge is too like slow and heroined out for double bass. It's just not
H in grunge.
You can't play double bass and you're all like on heroin. It's not going to work.
That's not even going to be in the. It's not even going to be in the.
Not gonna happen.
Realm of possibilities. You're just like,
You
why would
probably had
we
to
need
sell
to
your
double
second
bass?
bass drum
when-
so that you could,
You're just like, you sell the other bass drum.
That's why you don't have a big kit, because you're just having
Jesus Christ.
Sell the other bass
drums
drum
start to
for
dwindle
more
away. It's
heroin,
like whatever,
dude.
dude.
That's
Like,
fucking.
just shut up with a snare drum, man. That's all I got.
That's exactly.
it's like I got a microphone. I'll do the.
Oh my god.
I'll do the other drums with my mouth.
That's the
Joseph, you had
MTV
a question.
Unplugged era. No, that was it.
It's too good.
Yeah, we
That was
should wrap shit up. So Alex, your next tour is the Malignancy tour with Defeated Sanity.
Yep.
And then you are doing the Obscura tour after that next year.
Yeah, so we're doing 70,000 tons at the beginning of February, and then I'll be home for about a week, and then I'll leave for that tour with Flesh God Apocalypse.
God damn, that's gonna be fun.
Well, that Malignancy Defeated show, I want to be at very badly. So
I'm gonna be there.
I would
Santa
love
Cruz.
Is that gonna be Santa Cruz?
Yeah, it's an hour south of me, so I really want to make it to it. I've played the Blue Lagoon. I've been to Blue Lagoon. It's a staple for Santa Cruz scene. So
Yeah, I've only ever played the Catalyst before.
it's
we
not
saw
a bit.
you. I
it's
saw
not-
you over at
It's
the.
not a super big venue, but you guys are gonna do good.
Killer.
And I will see you at the very first show on that tour, which is at Chain Reaction in Anaheim.
Oh, okay, killer.
Yep. Yeah, that'll
Is
be
Chain
fun as
Reaction
fuck.
still there? I thought it closed down. It's still there.
It's still there.
I hope it's still there because I'm supposed to be playing a gig there.
I remember that was a very legendary venue there.
I think it's no longer like all ages, no alcohol. I think they allow drink. They have a bar and they have alcohol for sale there now. So.
Oh, that's weird. That
Or it might still be all ages, but yeah, I think they sell.
Oh, have
booze now.
alcohol for
Like
sale.
animosity there back in the day. Anyways,
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
it's
yeah,
still-
dude.
This chain reaction on the flyer, so I'm assuming that's what it's gonna be.
So
Thank
should
God.
people like swoop by your the Svengahli or Exist band camps and check some shit out, get some merch and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, you can find links to basically everything, like all my different links. I have a link tree thing in my Instagram bio that you can basically get links to everything from,
sure.
like the Svengahli Bandcamp, Exist Bandcamp. Like I have a personal website.
We didn't even talk about your bass company, dude.
Oh, well, that's the
bass company.
That's a whole other can. I build my own electric basses.
Oh my god, that's sick.
But yeah,
Why did you say it at the top, dude?
No, that's your fault.
I'm not going to bed yet. I don't know what you guys.
This is like the main one.
Yeah,
that
zoom in.
Whoa, dude.
Why are we not zooming it?
That
Oh,
thing
you
is
got that
beautiful.
nice fuck. Oh,
Show-
sick.
Yeah, so this was the 14th one that I've built, I think.
Whoa.
So a little show and tell right now.
Let's slap it.
But yeah, exactly. But yeah, so I do it more of as a hobby than as like something I'm really trying to turn into a company. like that I've been playing with.
Obscura. Yeah, dude.
Yeah, dude. I saw that. I saw you play that live. That was so incredible.
Yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, so I kind of do it more as a hobby than trying to turn it into a full company, just because, dude, it takes so much time to build.
So you made those basses though,
literally from scratch. Yeah.
What, dude?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I obviously didn't build the pickups and the hardware and everything, but like I started the basses from planks of wood. Like I'll show you a picture of what that bass.
What? That's crazy.
I feel like
Joel's
so
I feel like Joel's gonna buy one at some point.
So that's what that bass basically started out as.
What the fuck?
Jesus.
Yeah.
Dude, that's
so
incredible.
Like literally
man.
I went to a lumber yard, bought that shit and turned it into a bass.
So the truss rod, I have a question about. So installing a truss rod, do you have to glue it down somehow with like some sort of like a glue?
You cut a little channel going down like the middle of the neck. Like I made a basically like a jig that I put my router in, and it makes me cut a perfectly straight line with the router. That you have to cut a channel into the neck, insert the truss rod, and then put the fingerboard on top of it.
Oh, man.
But you want to make sure you don't get any glue in the truss rod channel, because then that can seize the truss rod up. Like back in the day, like I broke a truss rod in a bass and had to remove the fingerboard and like do all of that shit because I put too much glue down. And glue had like seeped into the channel and like got inside of the bolt in the truss rod. And I went to try to go loosen it up.
Unspecific gear juggler.
It's pretty specific, but that's all.
Yeah, actually, it's super specific.
I wouldn't trust myself with that whole process for sure.
It's one of the specific things.
I was watching a one of those I forget that he's like a famous YouTuber, but he like goes to Schecter and he's like, build me my guitar or whatever. And he like, it was something about the truss rod where he's like, we put a little bit of glue in it. And I was like, what? Why would you do that? Like
that's
supposedly
weird.
it just holds it in. He's like, why would you put glue? He's like, it's gonna dissipate with the first churn. I don't know. It was a weird.
It was, and
it was Rob Scallion.
Okay.
Rob Scallion went to Schecter, and I watched the full thing. And they
Rob Scallon, dude.
Scallion. Yeah, Scallion. I think it's Scallion. Scallion or Scallion?
It is Scallion. Yeah.
Scallion, bro.
I'm Scallion for me. But so
that's kind of weird. I mean, and you're sure it was definitely glue? Because sometimes people will put like a line of silicone at the bottom of it, basically to lube up the truss rod to keep it, you know.
No, it was something weird. I remember like watching it, going like, my whole basis of like understanding the truss rod changed watching it. But
I'll have to go look for that video because I'd be curious.
I was like, well, that's why I don't have a Schecter. I'm looking at my Keith Merrow Schecter right here.
Because I mean, like I said, I've broken a truss rod because of that. So like, you definitely don't want to get too much glue.
I break my truss rod at least once a day, dude.
Oh man, I'm sorry to hear
break
that.
it. Why do you break it?
Replacing those or not?
What's her name?
I'm very serious about my rotting and all the trust.
I don't trust what you're saying.
It's like the set of the Hateful Eight where they broke the 170-year-old Martin guitar without realizing.
Oh my god,
dude, that whole story is insane. And like the shock of the other actors in that scene is completely real because they know what the guitar is.
Yeah,
like so, like I don't remember who the woman was in the scene, but her going like that is actually real in the moment. Like, don't do that because this is like fucked up.
Yeah.
And now Martin doesn't rent out any of their instruments.
But also, too, to me, that guitar is not worth that much. I used to work at Guitar Center, and there'd be like a 1956 Strat, and I'd play it, and it's all $60,000 when this is 2011. It's like 60 grand.
You
so
played a $60,000 instrument?
Yeah, I was playing it like this thing sucks.
Not all vintage instruments.
Garbage, really?
Like, so
what's this the year? It's collectors. It's collector stuff.
Totally.
It's like a collector.
I used to work in a guitar repair shop, and that's where I learned how to do all the building.
Yeah.
And so I worked in this big music store outside of DC called Chuck Levin's, and the repair shop we had was pretty good, and we had a bunch of people that would, you know, bring in some pretty interesting instruments. And like for instance, there was one Gibson. It was a Gibson L5, so like a semi-hollow, more like jazz kind of acoustic guitar that this guy brought in. That was his uncle's. His uncle wanted to be a jazz guitarist in the 50s in New York. Bailed on doing that, went into refrigeration, and because of knowing refrigeration, he knew about climate control and he loved the guitar.
Oh, shit, so it was perfect shape.
He took really good care of this guitar, and so when his uncle died, his aunt was just going to put this guitar out on a yard sale. She had no idea what it was. Like
Wow.
it was the guitar. And so this guy was like, hold on a minute, let me go check this out. They got it appraised for $25,000 because basically it was a brand new guitar from 1938. The only thing on it that wasn't original was the tailpiece, but the tailpiece came from like the 50s. So essentially it was the original. But this guitar sounded and felt and played amazing. Like it was really good because like it had been used, it had been taken care of. So like the wood does get used to its job after a while.
Totally.
So more of like acoustic instruments. But I've also played instruments that suck. Like I played this 1966 P bass that basically lived its entire life in a case, and I took it out. Like there weren't even any scratches on the pick guard. Like literally, like this
unplayed,
unplayed, brand new instrument from 1966. It felt like shit. It didn't sound that good because either like it just hadn't been used, so it wasn't, the wood wasn't accustomed to vibrating like that, or it just wasn't like the neck wasn't properly taken care of. So it's like, sure, that bass was probably worth a ton of money, but
it's like a status symbol. It's almost like I remember like we had that $60,000 whatever $1,000 guitar, and this dude just walks in, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll buy it." Just bought it for $60,000. Just like, yeah, well, like I need that. Like it was nothing. He's like, "Oh, 56 Strat? Yeah, I'll take it." What kind of strings do you guys have? Do you guys have like a like I was like, what the fuck? You're saying a $60,000?
What was the commission on that sale?
I mean, for Guitar Center, it's probably like $9.
Like nothing. Yeah, exactly.
Or like, so Chuck Levins had a big connection to PRS because actually Paul Reed Smith used to work at Chuck Levins. He worked in the guitar repair shop there, and that's where he like kind of got his stuff started. So they're like a licensed PRS dealer. They have a bunch of like really fancy PRS guitars. Like, have you ever seen the Dragon PRSs, the ones that have like these really intricate like dragon inlays over the body and the fingerboard? Just Google Dragon PRS.
I feel like I have. Yeah.
They're wild. Like the inlay jobs are amazing, and they're like $30,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
They're just PRSs with fancy inlays. So it's basically just like an art piece.
Damn.
So like if you're going to buy that, you're not really buying it as like a performer. You're buying that as like a collector. Yeah, as an art piece. It's like I wouldn't ever bring out a guitar like that onto a gig. I wouldn't want it to get fucked up, Yeah.
It's not like a functional tool. Like, because you're like, it's like I got my $30,000 guitar in the car. Let me go grab it. Like,
like, your dad's like Elon Musk.
The liability at that point.
This is a $50,000 nail clipper. It clips your nails so well.
So clean, dude.
There's a signature it leaves in the rivets of your nail. That's like no one.
It has like dinosaur eggs, like
Like so, there definitely is like a sort of collector's like.
But they'll be the same thing for us. I mean, there's been times where I've had the option to buy the Nicole. What's up, Nicole?
What up, Nicole?
There's been times where like there's been the Kerry King guitar from Seasons in the Abyss, that reverse headstock ESP they got sued for, and like I've seen that before, and I'm like, I need that guitar. Like that's like
a cool collector item though. Like that guitar,
but it's $25,000.
Or you should just collect only guitars that were sued over.
Yeah. I know. It's that old it's an Explorer headstock. They reversed it, ESP did, and then Gibson sued them for it, and then Kerry King went to BC Rich in like 2000 or something. But it was like the certain kind of guitar. When I was watching it, I was like, as a little kid, I'm like, that's the guitar I need. That's what I want, and that's what for them, that's the same thing. They're watching that 56 Strat, they're like, oh, that's it. That's the guitar.
Think of how many guitar models have been made that have been sued over those. Like a bunch. There's like 20.
Oh yeah.
Oh, there's all
so
the time.
Many models that people have been sued over.
Well, because like how many like different companies make like a Strat like instrument?
Yeah.
Or things that are so similar. So
it's like that's the most copied. Like that's people have kind of figured that one out pretty good.
Or Les Paul, or an Explorer,
or Les
like
Paul
a
too.
V, like all those things have like been. There's some, I don't know how they get around the patents or whatever, but there's some sort of like extra little thing they do. Those like a little wider for V. It's like they
mine
figure it out.
Doon 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 doon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's no like last note at the end.
Yeah, exactly.
Imagine if you found out like that's a good percentage of these guitar companies' revenue is winning lawsuits against other makers that make similar guitars or some shit like that. You
Oh
know?
no, the patents get ridiculous. They get pretty gnarly, you know.
Yeah, or maybe they have to like pay commissions to like, or like some type of royalties to like the patent owner.
It's probably like a rite of passage. Like once you get sued, you've like made it.
Does the sticker make it?
What do you got there?
What is that?
Does the sticker add to the valuation?
Third eye? Oh,
as long as it was put on when you bought the original bass, it hasn't been adjusted at all. Yeah, it definitely does.
Are you gonna play some bass for us, Joseph? Is that what's going on?
As long as the bass player of Coal Chamber put it on before, like
the bass player of Coal Chamber.
It's the only bass I've ever bought.
1996.
Probably the shittiest bass player in new metal.
You play some new metal for us, dude.
Berber dang or what? Dude?
Baby.
Yeah, dude. Anything.
I'm not plugged in.
So my barber's name's Dan, so I call him Barber Dan, so it's Berber Dang. And Trevor goes to him too, so I'm like, are you going to Berber Dang? Like, yeah, Berber Dang.
Berber Dang.
Barber Dan.
Yeah. All right. We should
wrap
it up.
That was a fun extra 20-minute bonus.
Oh, Anthony's getting tired.
I am.
I gotta race like a piss horse and work.
Well,
in the morning.
Yeah, no, let's do it. Let's wrap it up, guys. I had a great time tonight.
Sure. Absolutely, man.
That was a lot of fun.
Thanks a lot, dude.
No doubt. And
see you in a month or two, man.
See you guys
again, real quick.
Send me a message or text me or something before that just to remind me which shows you guys are going to be at. I'll try to remember.
Right.
It'll be easy, dude. It's the first one and the last one.
Right. First one and the last one. Nothing in between.
But we'll stay in touch for sure, Alex.
Yeah.
Battleforgecoffee.com.
Thank you for reminding me.
Yes, sir.
I love my coffee, so definitely.
Yes, it's very good coffee, and they're the homies in DJ Flesh are doing it over there, and I'm sure they got some holiday deals over there. So get over there right now.
Boom.
And then whether it's fish or goat, you have to
and then Professor, let us know when is this pre-order deal? We plugged on the last 2 episodes.
Sorry, there will be new merch coming soon. I just have to do it, but it'll be available soon.
That full color.
I already rated, and now you put that at the last second. All
right, that's
Who'd you raid?
Murray just tells me what to rate. It says goat.
That's what's up.
Goat versus fish.
Shout out to Jedi Grind in the chat, aka Murray Fitzpatrick, our longtime brother,
homie.
And Alex, plug where you want people to go.
Like I said, I mean, my Instagram page is kind of the main one, the easiest one that kind of has everything centralized. But I think exist.bandcamp.com. Like, I think that is our Bandcamp page. I'd have to look at the I'm terrible with some of these links. I can never remember what all of them are because I've got a ton of them. But
just
either way,
follow fucking Alec Weber.
Oh yeah,
Alex Webster, dude.
Just type
Alex
it
Webster face. That's
type
it. Follow
Instagram.
Alex Webster,
and then look at his link tree, Alex Weber, and then go to his Instagram and then link tree. Follow him because he's a fucking badass motherfucker. He's gonna be touring. He's gonna be shredding in your face, and rock and roll McDonald's.
And give a little Twitch love. Give a little Twitch love to.
We were blasting those Wesley Willis tunes like the whole time.
Oh my god, so Suck a Cheetah's Dick is that's my favorite. Or then Morbid Angel. What's Morbid Angel? There's good ones.
I was gonna say, give a little Twitch love to Nicole Papastavrou.
Hey,
she said it right.
Shredder.
Yeah. I love Nicole.
Chat with us.
What's
right
up,
now,
Nicole?
and Super Shredder, killing it on the Twitch game. Go check out her channel. I don't know what it is off the dome, but there you go.
I like
Off the Dizzle.
I do like that too. I want to say that more. Off the dome.
Nicole Callius. Is it Nicole Callius? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
I mean, just
Callius is your band, right?
Yeah.
Callius. Yeah.
Go check it out. And
I have to piss really bad, so I'm cutting everyone off.
I'm actually figuring out different ways to
Joel
continue the show.
We toured for how many? Dude, just
Joel, so tell me what it's like
right here.
When you became a bass player from being a guitar player. How'd that feel?
It felt kind of like